A very pleasant summer night in downtown Baltimore, Maryland, and we welcome you to sold-out M&T Bank Stadium. A matchup tonight in week 2 of the preseason between a pair of playoff teams from a year ago. Calvin Johnson and the Detroit Lions in town to take on the Baltimore Ravens. And hi again, everybody, alongside Brian Billick. I'm Tom Brenneman. Welcome, as always, to the NFL on Fox. Well, it wasn't all that long ago, Coach Billick, you won a Super Bowl right here with the Ravens. So I'm going to ask you to put on that coaching cap again and take us inside all the meetings in preparation of the second preseason game.
Well, as a preseason game goes, this is a big one. Because in game 1, you hope they can just get to the stadium and know where to line up. In game 3, that's for the starters. They'll go well into the third quarter. And the fourth game, the die is cast by then. So if you're trying to create a role or trying to find a way on this football team, you got to make an impact in this game for the coaches.
The Detroit Lions last season won 10 games, went to the playoffs for the first time since 1999, thanks in large part to 5,000-plus passing yards by Matthew Stafford. They like to run the ball more frequently this year, but in a bit of a bind. They're still without Javid Best, who suffered 2 concussions last year. So how do you get there?
Well, they don't not only want to run the ball, they have to. They can't be 29th in the league in rushing like they were last year and get where they want to go. Now, they're without Javid Best. So far, Mikel LaShore hasn't been able to practice. So tonight, I think we're going to see a heavy dose of Kevin Smith, Keelan Williams, and Joique Bell against a very good rushing defense. They want to know if that running game's going to hold up.
Well, you think defense, you think the Baltimore Ravens. Now, they're staring down the barrel this year of not having the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year, tearing his Achilles tendon. Terrell Suggs, what now again?
That's a big loss. So what they've got to do is they've got to find whether their first pick of the draft, Courtney Upshaw, Paul Kruger, maybe Sergio Kendall, individually or collectively, can they create a pass rush so they don't have to blitz 7 and 8 guys on every snap to get pressure on the quarterback?
What a job John Harbaugh has done here with the Baltimore Ravens. Became the first coach in NFL history last year to not only take his team to the playoffs, but to win a playoff game. Meanwhile, for Jim Schwartz, the Baltimore native, an unbelievable turnaround of this Lions program, although certainly some sleepless nights during what has been a tumultuous offseason. A number of players arrested. For more on that, here's Laura Oakman.
Tom, I talked to Nate Burleson, who said he wasn't frustrated with the guys who made the mistakes, because he said we've all made the mistakes. He said I was frustrated about was the idea that those mistakes could overshadow everything we've been building. He said it's taken years to exercise those 0-16 demons, which is why the leaders wanted to instill in all these young brains every little thing you do affects all of us. He said Jim Schwartz has been huge in terms of keeping this team's focus, telling them it is hard to go from terrible to good, but it is even harder to go from good to great. Tom, Nate insists that this team understands the definition of greatness happens both on and off the field.
Oh, we talked about Jim Schwartz, a Baltimore native, went to Mount St. Joseph High School, on to Georgetown University, where he played linebacker and actually began his college coaching career, period, as a grad assistant at nearby University of Maryland. Ravens are going to get the football first. They won the toss, and a new look to this Ravens offense in 2012.
There is, Tom. We saw it in the Atlanta game with a lot of the no huddle or sugar huddle. A lot of people thought they were just trying it out. They seem committed to it. I think we're going to see it from the get-go and a major part of at least the first half in a no huddle offense.
Offensive coordinator Cam Cameron, all hands on deck in this hurry-up mode, and we'll see it momentarily. Jason Hanson, at 42 years old, spins it away, and the recently acquired Jacoby Jones will bring it out, and he crosses it 15 and dropped at the 17-yard line. 2008, in the first round it was Joe Flacco. In the second round it was Ray Rice. And my, oh my, to the playoffs every single season since.
And they think with Anquan Bolden and the depth of the receiver core right now, they think they're as good at receiver as they've ever been. They're going to have balance. They're reshuffling the offensive line, and that's going to be the key.
A flag on the opening kickoff. And apparently they picked it up and put it away. So we begin from a 19-yard line. Flacco, an NFL record in his first 4 seasons, 44 wins. That's one more than Atlanta Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan. Blown dead before it ever got started. Our referee tonight, of course, we're using replacement referees. This is Jerry Hughes.
Offside on the defense, number 99, 5-yard penalty, first down.
Of course, the Detroit defense last year, one of the huge stories. Up front, they can be intimidating, they can be dominating, led by this trio among others, but the secondary, real problems last year. They tried to address that during the offseason. On a 1st and 5, quick slant. And the reception made by Laquan Williams in his second year out of the University of Maryland, trying to win that number 3 wide receiver spot in this Ravens offense, and that's out to the 34 for a first down. And here's that sugar huddle, that hurry-up offense.
Yeah, the idea of the sugar huddle, it's not a true no huddle. He's not calling it the line. They do kind of come together, but it's very loose. He gets the play out quickly. They line up and go.
First carry of the night for Ray Rice, who led all NFL players in yards from scrimmage a season ago. It'll bring up 2nd down and 9.
And defensive coaches hate this. They can't get substitutions in. It's hard to get the calls in. As you can see here, the line has to be down in their stance a long time as Joe works his offense at the line of scrimmage. This puts a lot of pressure on any defense, and they don't like it.
Flacco to throw for a second time, and a second time a completed throw. In his 10th season, a 3-time Pro Bowler, came over from Arizona 2 years ago. Anquan Bolden, a gain of 11.
And this is a big part of this no-huddle offense. A lot of quick passes. They've removed almost all 7-step drops by the quarterback. He gets the ball out of his hands very quickly.
Slips to the inside, up close to midfield, wrapped up by DeAndre Levy. That'll be a gain of close to 4. Boy, the dynamic Ray Rice. He can do it all. You and I were talking last night, Coach. Is he the best running back in the NFL?
I think it is. And when you look at both the contributions in the running game and the receiving game, I think he's the most complete back in the NFL. He may not be the best runner in the NFL.
Run right in the chest of Cliff Avery. Averill playing for the first time. You may remember he was a holdout over the first 8 days of training camp, looking for a long-term contract. Didn't get that, but he's happy to be back and in the game tonight.
And you talk about building a defense inside out with Ndamukong Suh and Nick Farley inside, Cliff Averill and Vanden Bosch on the outside. That's a pretty good inside-outside combination.
6th play of the drive. First time that Flacco has faced a 3rd down. It's 3rd and 6. With protection, looking for Jones, and he couldn't come up with a football. Good coverage by Jacob Lacey. They brought him in during the offseason to try and clean up some of the holes they had in that Detroit secondary. Lacey, a 3-year starter in Indianapolis.
Yeah, and they think this guy can be a regular player for him, not just a special teamer and a part-timer. This guy is a guy that has come in. He's familiar with this style of play coming from Indy, along with quarterback coach now Jim Caldwell, so he understands this fast-paced huddle, this fast-paced tempo of the Baltimore Ravens.
Stephon Logan standing back inside his own 10, waiting on the punt from Sam Cook. End over end punt. Logan waiting. Will let it fall. And covered beautifully by the Ravens. Special teams was not a strength for this Ravens club a season ago. They're hoping it improves dramatically this year. 48-yard punt. We're just underway. And we'll get a look when we come back at the perennial Pro Bowlers, Lewis and Ed Reed and the Baltimore defense.
Tonight's game on Fox is sponsored by Ford. Go further.
First possession for Detroit offensively. And staring right into the eyes of 37-year-old wonder Ray Lewis. Start on the ground to Kevin Smith. A real nice comeback story a season ago for the Lions, and a nice pickup on first down. You talk about the Lions, and most of the time you're talking about the guys who are doing it through the air, beginning with Stafford, Johnson, Brandon Pettigrew, coming off an 83-catch season.
Well, and they've got the combination of inside receiver with Pettigrew, outside receiver with Calvin Johnson. As we said earlier, they can't be one-dimensional like they were last year. They've got to be able to run the ball better.
Notice Stephon Logan in the backfield. They'll be playing more and more out of the backfield this season. They swing it out to him. One man to beat for a first down. And very close. It looks like he was able to get there. And they move the chains. It appears good enough for a first down. Stafford joining Tom Brady, Dan Marino, and Drew Brees, one of only 4 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL to throw for over 5,000 yards in a season, 41 touchdowns. And after they spotted the ball, it looks like the Lions are about a foot short of a first down.
I think it caught them off guard. That's why we've got to get the timeout. They thought, or the officials calling it out, I think the Lions thought they had the first down. That's obviously a wholly different call on first down than the one you're going to make on third and short. And now it looks like the officials deciding it is a first down.
And now John Harbaugh wondering, could read his lips. He said unbelievable.
Well,
so it is a first down.
He has the right to make them measure it if he wants, but the officials certainly deciding now that the measurement's not needed, and they're going to go. And as you can see, they rotate personnel now and now put first down personnel back in, because as I said, there's a whole bunch of difference of what you want to do on 3rd and inches against this Baltimore Raven team versus on first down.
And again, unfortunately, right now, that's probably the single biggest story in the entire NFL. The officials have been locked down as the catch is made by Calvin Johnson, and he's up to the 25-yard line. That'll be good enough for another Detroit first down. First 2 names you think of with the Baltimore Ravens, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed. The third would be Terrell Suggs. Now, who replaces Suggs, the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year?
And they're going to have to do it by committee, because I don't think they have that singular guy on their defense that can command the kind of attention that a Terrell Suggs does.
Handed off and dropped for a 5-yard loss. Maki Kimoyatu in a second go-round with the Baltimore Ravens.
Maki Kimoyatu, I tell you what, he's come back to the Ravens after leaving in free agency. You put him together with Mount Cody, that's a lethal inside combination, and now Detroit trying to catch him with a no-huddle as well.
No flag on the play. Looked like Calvin Johnson slipped crossing the 30-yard line, covered by Kerry Williams.
They were both on the same page. Calvin Johnson just trying to pull up with a simple hitch, but couldn't keep his feet. Awful tight coverage by the Ravens to try to get a hitch throw in there on the wide side of the field.
3rd down at 14. They need to get to the 35. Blitz coming again. They dump it off to Smith out of the backfield, and he's buried at the 25-yard line. The Lions will punt.
You're going to see pressure right up here coming from the outside. This is typical Baltimore Raven football. Bring a safety up, make it look like coverage mode, slip him on the inside when he was. Got to be careful there. Pretty good job by Pollard not getting that hit to the head. That was awful close to a hit to a head that would have brought a penalty.
We'll be joined during the telecast tonight by Mike Pereira, longtime head of officials in the NFL. That one nearly blocked off the foot. And it's picked up by Jones. And really no running room. The 25-yard line off the foot of Ryan Donahue. He's in a battle for that punter's job with Ben Graham. Rice and company back at it when we come back. No score for Baltimore. Well, both head coaches having a few words with the replacement officials very early on here tonight. And we brought up earlier that Mike Pereira last night in Atlanta jumped on the plane earlier this morning and joining us up here in the broadcast booth tonight. For many, many years, Mike, you were the head of the NFL officials, and now you're watching basically the same thing that happened. You were, 1-2 months on the job as head of officials when a similar situation that we're having right now occurred. That one jumped off to Rice out of the backfield for a gain of 9.
And Tom, it's a really difficult situation because they've got competent people out here, competent that work at the Division II level and III level. But the speed of this game and the rules and the interpretations of the rules are really, really difficult. And I really hope this thing gets settled because I do think that it's best for the game to have the best guys on the field.
Well, they're keeping up with this no huddle, so we got to keep our eyes out in here. But the problem, Mike, being is that this is what it's going to be if they don't get it. So we've got to jump on board with these guys. They got a high learning curve. I understand that, but at the end of the day, the game's not going to stop come the first regular season game.
Well, and the negotiation is going to end. I mean, there is going to be the end of this,
right.
and the regular guys are going to get back. The sense of urgency just needs to be there to get it done.
Flacco on a third down, throws complete to Bolden up close to midfield. They'll move a change. Mike, based on your experience on the field, as there's a penalty flag down on that play following the completion to Anquan Bolden, and again we'll hear from the referee Jerry Hughes.
Personal foul, number 98 of the defense, roughing the quarterback, 15 yards, automatic, first down.
That's Nick Fairley, who has had more than his fair share of trouble off the field during this offseason. And right there, a blatant late hit on the quarterback, Flacco. Mike, to finish a thought, based on all your experience, the games you've seen so far, what concerns you maybe the most of anything out there about having a different set of officials?
The administration of the game, knowing when to run the clock and when not to run the clock, and penalty enforcement. Those are the key things that they're going to struggle with. It takes a long time to learn NFL rules. Although they're getting a lot of experience tonight.
With the offside. And that's a function of this no huddle, because you can see with Baltimore, it's a quick no huddle. It's a sugar no huddle. They're pacing it out at different times. Joe Flacco doing a nice job changing up the cadence. This defensive line gets more and more anxious, and we've already seen 2 offsides.
Offside, number 95 on the defense, 5-yard penalty. First down.
You know, the other thing with the no huddle, Brian, from the officiating standpoint, if the offense does not substitute, then the defense gets no chance to substitute and match up. If the offense does substitute, then the officials will step over the ball and give the defense a time to match up. Tough play to officiate, too.
So after the big gain to Bolden, the penalty puts the ball at the 30-yard line. And is out of touch on the far side. It is inside the 20, made by Laquan Williams. You know, generally we hear so much as you look at this reception. We hear so much, Mike, about points of emphasis. Anything NFL fans should be looking for this year?
You know, I don't think so. I think holding is another point of emphasis. They're looking for consistency, not more fouls. Player safety, they added a 9th defenseless player. That will always be a point of emphasis. But beyond that, not a lot.
Looking at the corner of the end zone, again an eye on Laquan Williams, and complete.
I think that maybe the big significant thing is the replay, and now putting that all turnovers essentially are reviewable upstairs. The coach is not allowed to challenge. You know, more and more they're taking the challenges out of the coach's hand and putting it in the hands of the guys upstairs.
And that's a good thing.
And I know that this guy to my right really likes that.
Well, Mike, it's great to have you with us tonight. We're going to be visiting frequently. You've had a very long day today, an early morning, leaving Atlanta after the game on Fox last night. Bengals beating the Falcons. And that's Rice. They may not be very big, but my, oh my, Coach Billick, is he one powerful young man.
And this is the biggest concern with the sugar huddle or the no huddle of the Baltimore Ravens. Will they continue to be able to feature Ray Rice in the running game? So far they have. You can see here, this is fatiguing that defensive line. The Detroit Lions, like any team, is going to have to roll people through here to keep up with this tempo defensively. This taxes a defense.
Rice on a 3rd and 1 has the first down. It'll bring up 1st and goal from just outside the 7. Neither one of these offenses were very good in their first preseason game. But a good drive here, second drive of the game for Flacco and the Ravens.
And this shows you their commitment to the no huddle or the sugar huddle, because they're doing it inside the red zone. Typically, you'll break it down inside the red zone, maybe inside the 10, maybe on a third down. They continue to do it.
Incomplete. Good coverage by Chris Houston on Laquan Williams. I got to ask you, though, Brian Billick. If I'm Cam Cameron and the Baltimore Ravens, last 2 years, Joe Flacco in the red zone has thrown 25 touchdowns and not a single interception in the red zone. Why are you fooling around with those numbers?
Well, but if you have that kind of faith in Joe Flacco, and he's earned it, you're saying, you know what, I believe he can do this because he's shown to have good judgment in the red zone. That reinforces the idea that he can do this down here.
Penalty flag down. Corey Williams chopping down Rice behind the line of scrimmage.
Holding, number 74 on the offense. And yard penalty, still second down.
That's a tackle Michael Orr, who has moved over to the left side after the lengthy holdout by their starting left tackle Bryant McKinney. That's a big story here in Baltimore. Orr struggled at the left tackle position, some felt 2 years ago, and back to right tackle last year. Very effective.
He's going to be fine in either side. Their comfort zone with rookie Kaliche Assembly on the right side allows them to do this with Michael Orr.
Outstanding coverage by the safety John Wedling, filling in for the injured Louis Delmas. They've got some question marks back at that safety position. Wendling and Coleman, a pair of backups, have been starting due to injuries to Delmas and Amari Spivey.
And they've been on it, because I'll tell you what, Joe Flacco is putting it on the money. These aren't bad passes. If they're not right there on tight coverage, we'd have had a score by now.
Screen to Rice. And beautifully defended by the Lions. That's Averill chasing down Rice from behind.
And this is what has been lethal for the Baltimore Ravens. If they commit to this style, they've got Torrey Smith and Jacoby Jones to take the top off the defense. They've got Anquan Bolden and a couple good tight ends to eat up the middle. And if it's not there, just drop it off to Ray Rice. 76 receptions last year. It's that combination that makes him so lethal out of the backfield.
Well, there's a kicker's competition here in Baltimore. Billy Cundiff, of course, missing that 32-yard field goal attempt in the closing seconds of last year's AFC Championship game. This one hammered right down the middle. He's in a race with Justin Tucker to kick for John Harbaugh's team here in 2012.
Sponsored by Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the NFL. Here we go.
Welcome back to Brian Billick's hometown. Boy, is it hard to believe some days, Brian, all seriousness, 12 years ago.
Wow.
Have gone by since you won a Super Bowl here with the Ravens.
Well, I could tell it's 12 years because as I came to the stadium, they wouldn't let me in the parking lot. I tried to flash my Super Bowl ring, but I must have been a Redskins fan running the parking lot because he wouldn't let me in. Someone had to come give me the right pass. On. How quickly they forget.
Well, so many folks are happy to see you here tonight. In all seriousness, we've had folks right below our broadcast booths wanting to take pictures of you, with you. Always so cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, you always say the preseason, you know, you got to keep your head. But tell me what this is all about. This is a preseason game.
That is passion. Look at the ups. You know, I'm thinking I'm getting some good ups here, but this one's not quite so. That was in a younger day. But hey, if you can't be passionate about coming to work every day, you got to find something else to do.
That's good stuff. Honda puts a foot on it. And Logan will take a knee. Ravens 3, Lions nothing. 4:50 to play. Stafford back at quarterback when we return. A pleasure to be joined by the men and women in uniform, serving around the world, watching our game in 175 countries and aboard ships at sea on AFM, the American Forces Network. God bless you all. We can't thank you enough. Fighting, standing proud and strong for the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. Baltimore chewing up a lot of clock on its second possession, leading to the only score thus far. And working out of the shotgun as he did so frequently last year. That one jarred loose on the pass attempt to Calvin Johnson. A flag is down. We've said that a lot already tonight.
Ineligible man downfield, number 87 on the offense. 5-yard penalty, first down.
Penalties were a huge issue for this Detroit Lions team last year. Primarily it came on the defensive side. But a lot of silly penalties, a lot of undisciplined penalties. And Jim Schwartz is hoping to get that cleaned up.
Well, and that was an undisciplined penalty because for 87, who obviously is a tight end, to be down the field, it means Brandon Pettigrew was covered up by an outside receiver. That's focus. That's attention to detail. It's exactly the thing you're talking about, Tom.
Second down, and Stafford guns it across the middle and connects this time with Johnson up to the 37-yard line and a first down.
Calvin Johnson is, you can see here, he just basically rolls into the middle. You know, the old adage says you roll to speed, you bracket coverage, quickness, but when a guy's got speed, quickness, and that size, you can have two guys on him. Matthew Stafford said the biggest adjustment I had to make, two guys on Calvin Johnson doesn't mean he's covered.
Give it to Keelan Williams, who rushed it 9 times for 71 yards in the first preseason game against the Cleveland Browns, including a 5-yard touchdown. And as Brian brought up earlier, Kevin Smith, Keelan Williams, Joy Bell, and Stephon Logan, all 4 of those guys without LaShore and without Javid Best, trying to get regular playing time out of that Lions backfield. Pretty nifty maneuvering there to pick up a couple of yards by Stafford. It brings up 3rd down and 2.
And it's interesting seeing Detroit. They're doing an occasional no huddle, but they pick their spots. That's also tough on a defense. If a team goes no huddle, okay, I'm ready for it. If the team huddles up, fine. But when they huddle, then no huddle, then huddle again, then no huddle, that tempo of in and out really does throw off a defense. Detroit doing it differently than Baltimore, but they're also taking advantage of the hurry up, no huddle offense.
Nearly intercepted. That's Paul Kruger out there in coverage. He's one of the Baltimore Ravens trying to replace the injured Terrell Suggs.
That was a very dangerous throw by Matthew Stafford. He was looking to the right, and then came back almost blind to the left. Almost cost him a pick 6.
Darius Webb stands at his own 10. And again, it's Donahue. Beautiful punt. Wow. You can't roll it out there any better than that. And Donahue trying to get his job back. Strained a quad last year. Missed the last 11 games. 54-yard punt, pinning Flacco inside the 3.
He keeps doing that. He's going to get it back, as opposed to how we saw the Baltimore Ravens do such a great job of getting around it. Obviously, that thing going, they did not cover it well, and it went out of bounds.
Paul Kruger, second-round pick in 2009, was used as a situational pass rusher last season at 5.5 sacks. But as you like to say, next man up, Coach Brian Billick. and this is his chance to shine.
They like Paul Kruger not only because he can bring that pass rush on the outside, but he's got the athleticism to fall underneath into coverage. Sergio Kendall, who they took in the second round, is going to struggle to make this team. He's a little one-dimensional. All he can do is rush. He's pretty good, but he can't do the other things. Courtney Upshaw, we don't know what he can do yet.
Flacco, a safe pass to Leach, and the two-time Pro Bowl fullback gives him a little breathing room out across the 15.
Vontae Leach is a unique player. This is the old-time big fullback that you can just smash up into the line that doesn't exist in this league very much, but he can do this as well. And having him in the game, typically say, well, you can't do the no huddle with him because you got two backs. They move him around. They put him in the bunch. They put him out at receiver. They'll no huddle with him as well. Now they're actually huddling. They're changing the pace of the game.
They hand it off to Jacoby Jones across the 40 and run out of bounds at the Detroit 49-yard line. Jacoby Jones making his home debut as a Baltimore Raven, coming over from Houston.
Just a simple reverse. You can see right here. Look how this collapses the defense right here. They've bought it hook, line, and sinker. Jacoby Jones, I tell you what, I had no idea Jacoby Jones was this big. He's every bit of 6'3". I thought he was a return guy. I thought he was a slot receiver. This is a big, good-looking receiver.
Pretty nice catch right there on a poorly thrown ball by Bernard Pierce. That's a rookie out of Temple. A flag came in during the play. We're getting back momentarily to Jacoby Jones. You may remember the last time he played in this stadium as a member of the Houston Texans.
Downfield on the offense. Number 86, he was covered.
That's
Five-yard
Billy
penalty.
Badgema, the tight end. But getting back to Jacoby Jones very quickly. The last time he played in this stadium was with Houston during the playoffs last year. He fumbled 2 punts that very much hurt the Houston Texans' chances of upsetting the favored Ravens. And after that game was extremely distraught, and the Ravens were the team that went out and got him.
And that tells you how much they think of Jacoby Jones, because they were there, saw it up close and personal, and said, you know what, we think there's an upside to this guy, and we want him on our team.
Hey, y'all still? Hey, offside! Offside!
Looked like Nick Fairley may have been lined up in the neutral zone. I'll tell you what, Nick Fairley, arrested twice during the offseason. He's facing a pair of trials down in his home state of Alabama.
Offside, number 54 in the defense. 5-yard penalty. Still,
well, it could have gone against either Fairley or who it was flagged against, DeAndre Levy, but Fairley already with 1 penalty tonight. And he is trying to work his way into good graces with the front office of the Detroit Lions and get in better shape physically for Jim Schwartz.
Well, I've always said, you don't cross onto the field and a magic line makes an undisciplined human being a disciplined player. And so the things that go on off the field, they do affect on the field.
Nearly losing his footing as Pierce somehow kept his balance, broke a tackle, and he's to the 43-yard line. Pushing and shoving going on. Anquan Bolden in the middle of all that. Eric Coleman.
And this is the test for the Detroit Lions because of their rep now, regardless of who started this. This escalates. The Detroit Lions are going to be the ones that are pointed out. This is where they've got to show the discipline we keep talking about.
Get him out. Hey, offside.
Pierce flooded to the outside, beautifully played by the left cornerback Chris Houston, and a flag comes in at the end of the play.
Boy, this is going to be something after the play. Jim Schwartz should go ballistic. He's yelling at the officials right now. We're going to have to see exactly what happened, but this is what we're talking about. They make a great play to push the Ravens back, who've got a little bit of momentum
Personal
going here.
foul, face mask on the defense. By rule, the ball is advanced to the previous spot, automatic, first down.
Looks like they're clean here. They got a heck of a job going. Looks like that left hand. It looks like the left hand inside got a hold of that face mask. And that can happen, okay? Again, you don't want to make the point with the Detroit Lions, but it's this type of thing. Now, here's the thing for the Detroit Lions. Okay, that was a mistake. Discipline, you can take whatever view you want. What do they do now? Or do they start to unfray now a little bit because they feel like the officials made a bad call, things are going against them? Last year, this is when things would begin to fall apart and they'd compound the years. Let's see what the Detroit Lions do now.
We're trying to figure out, Mike Pereira, we bring you back in. You know, some of the little things you talked about, managing the game, spot of the ball. What's going on, you think, down there right now?
Well, it's one of those tricky enforcements that you have. It's called behind. Since the foul occurred behind the line of scrimmage and the end of the run occurred behind the line of scrimmage, you go either the end of the run or the spot of the foul, whichever helps the offense the most, and go 15 yards from there. You don't go back to the previous spot and go 15 from that point because it's a dead ball foul. So that's what they're trying to work through here. But really, and you can see Schwartzy, I think, is going to try to throw the flag, but you can't challenge a penalty enforcement. So he's got no say in what they end up enforcing.
And again, while we have a minute here on Mike Pereira, to refresh a memory of some of the fans. I mean, it's been 9 months, almost 9 full months since we played football. Some of the plays that most frequently occur that are reviewable, and maybe perhaps those that are not reviewable.
Yeah, I think they did a really good thing in instant replay this year with making turnovers reviewable. Certain turnovers, I mean, they're not all, but most. Interceptions, plays that are ruled fumbles or backward passes that are recovered by the defense.
And the sack is behind the line of scrimmage, more than 15 yards. The ball has to be advanced to the previous spot. The face mask is an automatic first down.
So what he is saying here, which is a correct interpretation of the rule, if the 15-yard penalty from behind the line, that spot does not get him back to the line of scrimmage, you go then back to the line of scrimmage and put the ball there. I'm not sure where the spot ended up, though.
So based on that, this is the correct spot in the right rule.
Well, if it was more than 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage where the face mask and the end of the run occurred.
So in essence, it turns into a 4-yard penalty. Bernard Pierce, well, he's got good, strong running for the 31. But you were talking about change of possession penalties. And we're going to talk more about that throughout the rest of the night. Mike Pereira with us, along with Laura Oakman, Brian Billick, Tom Brenneman. End of the first quarter. 3-0 Ravens. The Fox NFL preseason special continues after this from your local Fox station.
And this is what the officials, this is the tough job of the officials, watching Ndamukong Suh and Marshall Yanda plays back away from the play. They're holding, they're pushing, they're shoving, they're not recognizing that type of stuff. Suh gets upset, has a right to be to a degree, but you better not do that, son. But the officials, this is something that is a concern because that's the type of thing that leads to an injury. And that's the #1 thing that's got to concern people about the replacement officials right now is getting that kind of thing under control. It gets under control by calling a penalty early enough on that.
So we begin the second quarter, a 2nd down and 3. And they pitch it to a very busy Bernard Pierce. Nice play coming up to wrap him up by Eric Coleman. Starter in Atlanta for 3 seasons.
Ndamukong Suh can be the most dominant inside player in this league just on his physical skill. He's going into his 3rd year now. He has to show the discipline that it takes to play inside to allow the other players around him, particularly in this wide 9 defense that the Detroit Lions run. There's got to be discipline to match that physicality inside.
Well, they've got the bigger back, Anthony Allen. Goes 6'1", 223 on a 3rd down and 1. Flacco's going to throw it, and down he goes. Wendling on the safety blitz drags him down.
You're going to see it from up here. That's what happens. The inside pressure of a Sioux. You get all focused on Averill and Vanden Bosch, and now all of a sudden you got a DB coming off the edge for a sack. This is what Dominican Sioux can do inside. You can't single block him. You've got to double him, and that pulls people off from the outside.
All right, now we talked about a kicker competition. We saw Cundiff hit on his first try. This will be a 50-yard field goal attempt by Justin Tucker. Wow. He was hitting them from 65 in the pregame. A young rookie out of Texas trying to snatch away the place kicking job from Billy Cundiff. Coach Billick, you're very intrigued by this competition with Tucker and Cundiff.
These are two good kickers, but Billy Cundiff, who is a good kicker, he's a great kickoff guy, but given what happened to him in the championship game against the New England Patriots, this is an awful tough place to come back to. The first time he stumbles, you know the way this crowd's going to be. They like this young new kicker. He kicks it straight, he's got a good kickoff leg, but it's hard to let a veteran go. This is a team that thinks it can go to the Super Bowl. Do you want to turn that over to a rookie kicker? It's a lot of baggage for Billy Cundiff to come in with this season.
1 yard deep out of the end zone comes Stephon Logan, and he finds daylight across the 35 and finally wrapped up at the 39-yard line by Shockey Brown. And a penalty flag is down, but we remind you, baseball tomorrow here on Fox. Playoff push into full swing now. Red Sox in the Bronx to take on the Yankees. The surprising Pirates will take on the Cardinals. Both those teams trailing Cincinnati in the Central. 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. Check local listings for the game and time in your area. That Pirate-Cardinal series is a big one. One game separating those two teams from a trip to the playoffs. So another Baltimore penalty. Well, I mean a Lions penalty, I beg your pardon. Taking away a dynamite return by Logan. They have 58 yards in penalties, and their offense has 45 yards. They're looking to get a big chunk of that back to Johnson, and they will. What a throw by Stafford. Perfectly delivered in stride to the streaking Calvin Johnson.
Kerry Williams thought he was going to get help over the outside and on top. Look at this. He's looking back at the ball, but he loses contact with Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson doesn't push off on him. He is just so big. If you get any kind of contact, he just kind of shrugs you off. He kind of shrugged Kerry Williams off in that situation. And now you talk about a change of field position.
57-yard pass play. Dangerous throw into traffic.
Well, James Schwartz told us he's going to stick with these starters until they got a little bit of rhythm. That play was certainly going to help them. You know, you don't want to expose your starters to any more than you have to, but by the same token, they got to get done what you want for them in this, the second game. They're going to take the majority of the snaps next week, as we talked about. If they can get a nice scoring drive here, go from the shadow of their own end zone and score on that, Jim Schwartz will see enough of his starters. We'll see the next offensive group.
Todd Stafford facing a second down and 10. And again, it's Johnson inside the 30 to the 28. Alvin Johnson, over 1,600 receiving yards last year. Deep speed, strong, great hands. Through 5 seasons already, 49 career receiving touchdowns.
I love Larry Fitzgerald. I love Andre Johnson. There's some good receivers in this league, but Calvin Johnson, this is a man's man here now. You can do a lot of damage with a big man like that outside.
4 catches, 93 yards. Tried to lay it off for Logan. He dropped it, and again, A flag is down.
I think the
Offside.
Ravens mistimed their blitz. Yep.
Number 91. Penalties enough for a first down.
This is their first pick of the draft. He was in the second round. The Ravens moved back into the second round. They thought they would have taken Courtney Upshaw with their first round pick. It was a late 20, but they knew they could fall back and get him. This is the guy they wanted. Has missed a lot of training camp. He's got to come up big with the loss of a Terrell Suggs.
So it would have been a field goal try were it not for the penalty, and now Kevin Smith right up the gut inside the 20 to the 18. And Stafford dismissing his sideline. He wanted that play getting in a hurry, and apparently it wasn't fast enough for him.
And he's reached the point now where I tell you what, he can do that. Here you can see on Courtney Upshaw, athletic but a little undersized, good heavy hands. That means he can really jolt you once he gets his hands on you. Wow.
Wow is right.
Wow.
Calvin Johnson just snatches it away from Jimmy Smith in coverage. And that is an 18-yard touchdown throw. Stafford to Johnson, up over 100 yards tonight.
Jimmy Smith's a good athlete, and they like where he is right now, but he's getting schooled here a little bit. Like I said, one or two guys on Calvin Johnson does not mean he's covered. Just because the DB's right there in his hip pocket does not mean he's covered, and Matthew Stafford knows that.
For the Lions, a point after away from their first lead of the night. How about those numbers? Of course, he had the unbelievable game in the playoffs, a loss in New Orleans, over 200 receiving yards in that game. Hansen out of the Donahue hold, and it's good. Stafford and Johnson connected 16 times for touchdown strikes a season ago. And they get one in the opening minutes of the second quarter tonight in Baltimore.
Game on Fox is sponsored by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Boy, this is good living right here. A little beer, a little vinegar, a little Old Bay, getting those crabs. I don't do it quite that fast. But that's good living right there, young man. Oh, you want one of life's simple pleasures? Old Bay on popcorn. Spice up your popcorn a little bit.
Really?
Oh, that's good. You got to drink a lot of beer with it.
Of course, we'd have to be invited out to your house for that to happen.
Anytime, young man.
We've only been here for 3 days and haven't set foot on the place.
I'm a little selective about who I have down on the shore.
Well, my wife tells me the same thing. Damian Berry decides to take the knee, wisely so.
You know, the last no huddle of the Baltimore Ravens, or I should say the last series, was a huddle series, but they were huddling and then still making calls at the line of scrimmage. Now we're going to see with Tyrod Taylor coming into the game, and this is important for the Ravens. They need to find a backup quarterback. Tyrod Taylor's going to get the first go at it. They too will continue to keep a no huddle with him. We don't know if we'll do it in this half or not, but they did last week against the Atlanta Falcons. They need to find a backup because this is a good enough team. God forbid Joe Flacco go down for a half or a game. They're good enough to win with the right backup.
Taylor had an outstanding career just down the road in Blacksburg, Virginia, at Virginia Tech. And he is in a fight with Curtis Painter, the former Indianapolis Colt, for that backup spot behind Flacco. Taylor played in 3 games last year. Completed his only pass.
And they are doing the no huddle, and this is right in Tyrod Taylor's wheelhouse. He is used to a no huddle call from the sideline like he did at Virginia Tech, so he's very comfortable with this.
Number of backup players are in the game along with Taylor. That one batted down at the line of scrimmage. Some of the wide receivers that are trying to win a spot on this team. 17, Tandon Doss. We've talked a little bit about number 15, Laquan Williams, and the free agent rookie out of the University of Florida, Deontay Thompson, number 83.
Ozzie Newsome said this is the deepest, most athletic, best receiving core they've ever had in Baltimore.
The Lions still have their first team defense in there. Looked like the receiver may have been tripped, but no flag down, or there is a flag, I beg your pardon, but it's in the backfield. But no flag to the intended receiver.
Well, this is part of, if indeed this is on the Ravens, we've had a couple of instances where they've covered up eligible receivers, both from Detroit and from Baltimore. When you run the no huddle, got to get a lot of people orchestrated into a lot of places. We'll see if that was the issue here.
87 on the offense, illegally downfield. That penalty will be declined. Personal foul, unnecessary roughness, number 72 on the offense. That penalty will be enforced.
That's the third time.
The goal line. Third down.
72's right here. The question becomes, we've seen this 3 times now. Tight ends being covered up by receivers. The depth of the tackle is obviously a factor in terms of the alignment. This is all part of the no huddle orchestration that has to be smoothed out.
It'll be 4th down.
Well, they're starting to back up the penalty yards, but of course after the incompleted pass, the Lions declined the penalty. So it's 3 and out for Taylor and company. That's Kelechi Osemele, the rookie out of Iowa State, the second of their 2 second-round draft picks behind Courtney Upshaw. Boy, they like his future.
They love this guy. He's big, he's cut, plays a little high, but he's got the athleticism to overcome it. They really think he can be a starter for them even this year.
Detroit.
Lions spending a timeout. Joe Flacco finishes 7 of 12, 79 yards tonight. Don't forget this season college football comes to Fox. Aaron Andrews, Eddie George, a former Buckeye, and Joey Harrington, the one-time Lion, get you ready for kickoff. And Heisman Trophy frontrunner Matt Barkley, USC, taking on Hawaii. Saturday, September the 1st, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, only on Fox. Cook punts it away, and he booms it, chasing Logan all the way back to the 23-yard line. And he's able to slip in between a pair of would-be tacklers, returning it 7 yards out to the 30.
Well, here comes Stafford. I said if they went the length of the field from the shadow of their own goal line, that would probably be it for the starters. But Jim Schwartz, it's a feel thing. He says, I'm not going to give a specific number. He likes what he saw. I think what he wants to do is he wants to continue to see if he can try to run the ball against this good Ravens defense. We talked about the importance of the running game. Not to be disrespectful to the Cleveland Browns, but they're not the Baltimore Ravens against the run. He may want to see if he can continue to push this running attack against this good Raven run defense.
Well, they've only run it 5 times for a total of 16 yards. And that might make you think about not running it. Although it appears, though, that the line in the backfield, Logan, is hurt. Well, when you see a player go down like this is not because of the collision.
No, and the way he stepped, it's hard to see what happened.
It's right knee. It happened before the collision ever occurred.
And that's what led to the collision, obviously. But, boy, you'd hate to see this happen.
Young man hoping for his first big chance. Well, they're taking a look at Stephon Logan, but it appears as though it may not be, and you hate to speculate, but it may not be as serious as we thought it was. He was able to get up, walk off the field, pretty much without a limp. Fake the end around and set up a screen to Kevin Smith out of the backfield. And he's still on his feet. No penalty flags down up to the 45-yard line. That is a first down. You know, you talk about Logan. Logan really is an amazing story. I think he's one of the most fascinating stories of all the players in the National Football League. He went to high school down in Miami. After he graduated, he did not play football for 5 years. Worked a number of different jobs, just trying to earn a living. Decided, I want to come back and play football at 22 years old. Started sending out tapes to anybody who might think about giving him a chance to play. And South Dakota said, come on, we'll give you the shot. Well, he got to South Dakota and became a fabulous player there. Nobody wanted him coming out of college despite that great collegiate career. 3 teams let him go. He lands in a lap of the Steelers and wound up going to the Pro Bowl as a special teams player.
And he's listed as a wide receiver, and it looks awful good. He's lacing his shoes back up. Hopefully we can see him back in the game. They're going to use him in a Darren Sproles type atmosphere, both in the backfield and out of the backfield.
Flag comes in, getting tangled up again. Jimmy Smith with Calvin Johnson.
Jimmy Smith's getting schooled by Megatron. I tell you what, just the sheer size of it. You can see him down here at the top. He's really in pretty good position, but he gets by you so quickly. He's so big, that little jerk,
illegal
that little
contact.
pull.
Number 22 on the defense. 5-yard penalty, automatic, first down.
And he had help over the top.
And the reason they called the flag had nothing to do with the ball being in the air. After Johnson had run by him and gone beyond 5 yards is where Smith grabbed him to slow him down. That is a penalty, and that is a correct call.
They like Jimmy Smith, second season out of Colorado. Going to be a starter for him probably fairly quickly here as we get into the regular season. Very gifted athlete.
Smith bottled up, and they're still outside of that big run by what in essence was a run. They dropped it off out of the backfield in a screen, but not much running room so far for Detroit.
We talked about Paul Kruger as a pass rusher, but he's a big part of this run defense as well. He's trying to replace Jarrett Johnson. That was a huge loss for them in the offseason. He was kind of the glue that kind of held all together. You hear about Noddy, you hear about Suggs and Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, but Jarrett Johnson was a big part of this defense. They're hoping Kruger can step in that capacity.
That's Jameel McClain putting a hat on Kevin Smith, second leading tackler a season ago for the Ravens.
They like Jameel McClain. Obviously, at some point, God knows when, Ray Lewis decides to quit playing. I don't know what. Who knows? This guy's playing so lights out. But they like what they see in their young linebacking core, and in particular in McClain. Not that he's going to replace a Ray Lewis, but he's developing a pretty good resume inside.
On a 3rd and 5, Stafford finds Pettigrew for a first down to the Ravens 30. Boy, this passing game of the Lions is so good.
Watch the inside protection by the offensive line. Ravens doing a stunt with a pressure from the outside by the DB. They sort it all out. That's a maze of blue jerseys in there. And for that line to work in conjunction to give Stafford time to get it off to Pettigrew, that's a great pickup from a very aggressive, complex defense.
83 catches for nearly 800 yards. Both Lions single season records by a tight end last year for Pettigrew. Keelan Williams juggled it, caught it, and picks up 4.
This is 2 nice drives by the starting offense of the Detroit Lions. Now keep in mind, this is not the starting defense any longer. You don't have a Ray Lewis. You don't have an Ed Reed. This is still a pretty good stout group they're facing, though.
Williams on the ground this time. Gain of 2. Third down upcoming.
This is going to be a hallmark of the new defensive coordinator, Dean Pease. Disguising fronts and looks. They show pressure. Matthew Stafford says, okay, I'm going to make my check. Now I'm going to go vertical. Now watch. They check out of it. They go back to a passive zone, going tit for tat with the change of the offensive player to a different play and put up a pretty good run front with it. Dean Pease, the new defensive coordinator, taking over for Chuck Pagano, who became the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Got an awful group to work with, but he steps into a lot of pressure, particularly without Terrell Suggs.
Of course, Dean Pease also has a Michigan tie, former defensive coordinator at Michigan State. It wasn't anything to worry about. That tells a different tale.
Yeah, that's an anxious young man right there. We won't speculate on what the injury is, but this guy has fought awful hard to find a role on this football team, and you hate to see that happen. That's an anxious young man right now.
Laura Oakman will be checking that out along the sideline. Meanwhile, third down. Stafford gets it away. And the catch is made, and still on his feet is Titus Young into the end zone, a touchdown. There's a penalty flag down, however, in the backfield at the 35-yard line. That might be a personal foul on Kruger.
Roughing the quarterback with the 99 on the defense. Touchdown is good. Penalty will carry over to the kickoff.
Well, Paul Kruger hitting Stafford late. And they are so excited about Titus Young. Coming off a productive rookie year was Young, nearly 50 catches. But certainly took some heat with some silly personal fouls of his own, some hot dogging. Got into a fight with his teammate Louis Delmas during the offseason. But my, is he talented. In his second year out of Boise State. Going after by Hansen. Lions passing game again tonight, Brian. Mighty impressive.
What makes this even more impressive is Stafford getting this off under the pressure. Kruger unblocked, gets this thing off under that kind of pressure for the score. And this happens so often. He's unblocked. Stafford's going to wait it out to the very last minute. And then it's that helmet to helmet along with the elbow coming up. You just can't right now. He doesn't mind. He's not feeling it because he knows he's got a touchdown. But Paul Kruger's got to know that's illegal. They're going to call that every time. Yeah, that helmet to helmet is legal. You like that kind. You know, the Baltimore Ravens, we talked about, they're excited about the receiving corps. Jim Schwartz was equally excited about this receiving corps. You know, obviously, about Johnson. They've got the good 2 young tight ends, but you just saw there at Titus Young. They talk a great deal about Patrick Edwards to us, number 83. They feel like they have great depth at the receiver position as well.
9 plays, 70 yards, chewing up 4 minutes. What a night from Matthew Stafford again. We saw this Lion team many times last season, Brian. Pretty much followed them all the way during their playoff march. So many big games down the stretch. And Stafford was at his best as the season went on.
That game in Oakland we had, where there was no chance this was going to happen, brought them the length of the field. That was on the road. That was maybe a sea change for them in terms of them truly believing they could beat a championship caliber football team.
So with a penalty assessed, that one is through the uprights. For more on the Stephon Logan situation, here's Laura.
Tom, you guys talked about how he walked off the field without a limp. Must have been the adrenaline. By the time he went from the table to the cart they carted him off on, he couldn't put his foot down. The Lions are saying officially it is an ankle injury. They have taken him back into the locker room for further evaluation.
Well, that's actually, I would imagine, good news. It's not the knee, Brian. They're saying the ankle and not the knee. At least that's a report Laura is getting. Laura, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, but I've had one. You worry about the Achilles in that situation. That is a more serious injury. Hopefully that's not it.
Of course, that was the injury suffered by Terrell Suggs during the offseason. And there's another penalty flag that comes in. That might have been leading with the crown of the helmet there.
Yeah, this is going to be a helmet to helmet on a defenseless receiver, I imagine. He's got that protection, helmet to helmet right there coming in. That's going to get called every time.
It's Ashley Palmer who's been running with the first team defense the last few days in practice
Personal
after the
foul,
injury of Stephen Cullen.
unnecessary roughness. Number 58 of the defense, 15 yards, automatic first down.
And that's tough on this defenders, not excusing it in any way, shape, or form. This game moves very quickly. The receiver had the ball, started to drop down, so his original aiming point might have been okay. But the way the target moved and it ended up being helmet to helmet, yeah, it's tough, but it is illegal.
So Tyrod Taylor, after a 3-and-out his first go-around, working on his second series and dumps it off to Rainey out of the backfield. Bobby Rainey, college free agent out of Western Kentucky. 11th in NCAA history in all-purpose yards. And he can do a little bit of everything. I mean, when you're racking up the all-purpose yards, you can do it running, which he had back-to-back 1,500-yard rushing season. Over 1,000 touches in his collegiate career.
That was Ray Rice-ish, which bodes well for them. They'd love to have another level. Look at this.
That's a slant to Tandon Doss, and he's to the 43, another first down.
And this is what they want to see out of Tyrod Taylor, the ability to move the offense from the huddle, or excuse me, from the pocket. They know he's good outside the pocket. He ran for better than 50 yards against Atlanta last week. That's what he does. But right now, he's making plays from inside the pocket.
There's his running ability.
Now they're getting back to familiar territory. That ain't bad either.
Frank Beamer saw that a time or two.
And again, he's operating this no-huddle offense. Of course, you know, obviously where we're in, getting close to the end of the half here, but still with 6 minutes. He's very comfortable with this. This is exactly what he did at Virginia Tech.
Rainey, boy, this guy's got some moves. John Harbaugh was talking about him the other day. Had 140 all-purpose yards in the preseason opener, and already piling them up on this series right now.
And he saw with the coverage of the Lions, he went there right away. I don't need to read anything out. I know what's down the field's not going to be open because they dropped everybody off, got the ball to the back out of the backfield very quickly. That's strong right there. Look at keep it off the face mask. You're okay. You're okay. Got a hold of that chin. That's legal. Doesn't have it on the face mask. When you have the kind of moves we see out of him and that upper body strength to push defenders that way, that's pretty good. And this is an undrafted free agent now. This is a gift from above.
Free play. No penalty flag down.
Well, he got back, and none of the offensive players really reacted to it. If the tight end had moved to take him on, you can see no one's really moving. They just point to him, so he got back on sides. That end man line of scrimmage needed to make a move to match it, and when you had the penalty and a first down.
All right, a 4th down and 2. They are forced into another field goal try. Cundiff hit the first field goal attempt. Justin Tucker connected from 50 yards, and now Cundiff, a 44-yard field goal try. And right down the middle. September the 9th, we play him for real. And here on Fox, a Sunday doubleheader. It starts a week earlier, September 1st, in the college game with Hawaii against USC. Looking forward to that. Gus Johnson and Charles Davis will kick off our college football coverage.
You know, we've talked about Billy Cundiff, and it's not fair for him to have to deal with the. I was very surprised that he came back here to the Ravens just to find a new venue. But keep in mind, this is a very good veteran kicker, and this is a very good football team. I know Ozzie Newsome and John Harbaugh, again, an old special teams coach. Here you can see this and the dejection on this young man's. I mean, this keeps his team from going to the Super Bowl. and you know that this young man's life has changed from this moment going forward. Not fair, may not be right, but this is a good, strong young man. He's got a good leg. He's a good kicker. He knows the organization knows that. So he decided to come back here, could have gone elsewhere and step away from it, but he wanted to be here, and you got to give him credit for that.
Well, life is all about character. Doesn't matter whether it's sports, no matter what you do for a living. And clearly, Cundiff has plenty of character. Justin Millard leveled at the 15, and here's Laura Oakland.
If you talk to Billy Cundiff for 2 minutes, you realize what good perspective he has, gentlemen, about that missed kick. But one of the things he said that put him in that direction was the leadership in this locker room. He said this is a very tight team, a hard team to get in, but once you're in, you are in with them. He said Ray Lewis came up to him immediately afterwards, and Billy said, I was surprised. I really did expect everyone to turn on me. He said Ray said to him, don't forget, that kick was to go to overtime. It was not to win. We were not guaranteed to win. He said that changed the perspective.
We talked about character. That conversation right there, Ray Lewis tells you a lot about leadership. And Brian, I don't know if anybody knows more about Lewis and his leadership than you do. You were around when he came into the league as Sean Hill replaces Matthew Stafford at quarterback.
Well, and that's the thing that jumps out at you about Ray Lewis. Probably the single most question I'm asked is, what's Ray Lewis like? Well, what you see on game day, what you just heard, that's Ray Lewis through and through. Every day in meetings, every day at practice. That's a great source to have on your football team to build on. This is the one question I have about the hurry-up mode. Of course, either team, but for Baltimore, and you talk about a Ray Lewis, I've been on that sideline. When Ray Lewis hits a couple 3-and-outs, he'd saunter up and say, Coach, what are we doing here? And that's a big part of it, but he's all in, as is head coach John Harbaugh. And Ray Lewis obviously has signed off on this. We'll see how replete it becomes in the regular season. Right now, the opening quarter against Atlanta, and now here it's been okay, if not spectacular, and that's going to test their commitment to it.
Well, after the pass completion to Ryan Broyles, who's in game action for the first time since they drafted him out of Oklahoma. He got him within 2 yards of a first down, and then Will Heller could not hang on. It's nice to see Ryan Broyles out there. Broyles tore up his knee at Oklahoma in November of last year. And the Lions still took him in the second round of the draft. Bobby Rainey.
You know, the thing about Broyles was when you talked to Jim Schwartz about him, you got the sense was we don't care if he's 100% healthy. We're looking at the long term on this kid. And he kept coming back to what drew you to Broyles. He's the leading receiver in the history of college football.
Yeah.
Well, so what are some of the things he's doing? He's the leading receiver. He caught more balls than any receiver in the history, and he was at Oklahoma. We believe this kid's going to be pretty good.
So less than 4 minutes to go, and good field position for Taylor, who just led him on a scoring drive. And again, showing off his escapability is Tyrod Taylor.
And this is the type of environment that a defense can struggle, because you're really not doing a lot of game planning. When you play a Tyrod Taylor, that's a play you've got to guard against. You've got to do things defensively to make sure you don't create these seams. I guarantee you the Lions haven't spent a lot of time in scheming this type of quarterback this week.
Just beyond the reach of Rainey down the sideline, covered by Tahir Whitehead. Boy, Gunther Cunningham, a defensive coordinator. Well, what a piece of work he is. Well, you talk about a guy that's as gruff and tough on the outside and is as soft a hearted guy at the end of the day on the inside. That would describe that man right there.
And
good man.
There is no coach in this league that is tougher on his players than Gunther Cunningham, and there's no coach in this league that the players love more than Gunther Cunningham.
Taylor is spun down. Fairley was there. Andre Fluellen also there. Gunther Cunningham shared with us a story about Aaron Berry, undrafted free agent out of Pitt, who wound up becoming a starter. Gunther Cunningham loved him like a son, but of course Barry made some mistakes off the field, a pair of them in fact, which led to him being turned loose at the beginning of training camp by the Lions. And you could just see his heart melting right there for the kid.
He felt like he had let the young man down. That was nothing Gunther Cunningham did, but he felt like there's something I could have done to help this young man.
Through the hands of Badgema. So the sack hurts him. They've got to punt it.
That's a real catchable ball. Badgema kind of brought in. They've got two good tight ends here, but both are on the shelf a little bit. Dennis Pita has a broken hand. Ed Dixon has a shoulder. We may not see either one till the regular season. That's a big part of their package. They brought Badgema in to kind of fill that void during training camp and could make this team. But that's a big part of the equation that's missing for the Ravens right now.
Well, Pitt and Dixon combined for nearly 100 receptions last year. It's out of the end zone, and Sean Hill, on in relief of Matthew Stafford, will take over the 20-yard line.
They said Broyles would get, as Jim called it, just a couple sips of the cup here. They don't want to have him go too far here, dealing with the injury, ease him back into it. You got the sense that whatever his future is, they weren't going to push him too quickly because they think they've got an asset there. They're deep at the receiving core, so they don't have to push him into too early an action.
Jim Schwartz likened him to Derek Mason.
Yeah, great analogy. Tough and strong is what he alluded to.
Blitz coming. Sean Hill gets out of trouble. You would be hard pressed to find a better backup quarterback on any team in the NFL than Sean Hill. When Matthew Stafford went down 2 years ago, Hill, a one-time starter with the 49ers, came on through for over 2,700 yards, 16 touchdowns in his 10 starts. And then in the first preseason game this year, led the team on 2 scoring drives over the Browns. He is a solid backup.
Yeah, and I don't know that we'll see much more out of him. They know he's the backup. They want to spend time with the other quarterbacks to see what they have. They have great comfort in their backup quarterback.
Showed some pretty savvy experience right there. And being thrown to the ground and lays it off for a first down.
Excuse me, I alluded to it earlier. This is big. The Detroit Lions are a good enough team that God forbid something happened to Matthew Stafford. They're in good shape. He can win a couple games for you and keep you in the playoff hunt. As opposed to the Ravens, we talked about that. They need to fill that void. Maybe Tyrod Taylor is the guy, but I don't know that they necessarily feel like they have that guy right now because they too are a good team that could survive not having their starting quarterback for a game or two.
Clock will continue to run as Keelan Williams tried to get to the sideline. It's up to the 42-yard line. And this will take us down to the 2-minute warning. Stafford, a big night tonight, connected with the man he's talking to, Young, for a touchdown. Now Johnson for a touchdown.
Well, certainly you can look at those rush yards. I don't think that's what Detroit had in mind, but I kind of like these pass yards, and that's got to be a concern for the Baltimore Ravens. Last week against the Atlanta Falcons, Roddy White and Julio Jones put up 155 yards on 9 receptions in basically a quarter. So they feel very good about their secondary, does Baltimore, but they've been kind of shredded by the #1 guys the last 2 weeks, this week and last.
2nd and 2, 2-minute warning. And a completion is made to the 40-yard line. And again, it's Ryan Broyles, a rookie out of Oklahoma. Hurry up mode naturally for him. They have a pair of timeouts left. Keelan Williams for 3.
You love this as a coach. You love getting these situational opportunities with the new collective bargaining agreement. That's the one thing I hear from coaches. They love it. They love it. Keeps the players fresh, but they feel like they come up a little short with situational offense and defensive practice because of the way it's structured now. To get this in a game like that, offensively and defensively, you love it.
Heller hangs on this time, short of a first down. 1 minute left.
Maurice Stovall, the intended target. So 4th down upcoming. And out comes the field goal kicker. 42 years young, oldest player in the league is Jason Hansen. 21 years, all in a Lions uniform. How sweet was it for him last year to get back to the postseason?
There's a certain comfort. I had Matt Stover for my entire career in Baltimore. There's something comforting about having a kicker that's as old as you are. You know has been there.
50-yard attempt, and he edges it in. So Hansen, who hit 5 out of 7 from 50 and beyond last year, has more 50-yard field goals than any kicker in league history. Connects from 50 out here.
And this isn't indoors. That's one thing, Hansen. Well, you're indoors, and so you get that, and the ball's heavy. It is a damp, muggy night, so that ball's heavier. That's quite a leg. And the best thing about having a veteran kicker, Tom, is not beyond obviously the physical skills, but when a guy tells you something, Coach, I can make this. Yeah, you believe it. It's not just youthful exuberance. It's when Hansen says, Coach, I'm good here. My pregame, I'm good, and you can believe it. I had that in Matt Stover. He had always at the beginning of each quarter, Coach, I can do this from here. Because how do you go to a kicker at any time and say, can you make this? Well, what man's going to say, no, Coach, I can't. But with a veteran kicker like that, that's a huge asset for Jim Schwartz.
So 17-9 Lions. And Hansen. Deontay Thompson receiving his kick. And the former Florida Gator is still on his feet. And he is down the sideline. No penalty flag. Touchdown, Deontay Thompson.
They're saying he stepped out of bounds, I believe, back there at the 50.
The mark on the sideline where he stepped out of bounds. Not a penalty flag. It doesn't appear.
Let's see right here. They're saying right about right. Yes.
Yeah, on the return,
clearly out of bounds. About the 48. And there's a penalty.
I did not see where the other flag was.
I did not. We were so focused on him going down the sideline. Wow. Dodged a bullet there. Beyond just coming back to the 50. Right there, just a little bit of a grab. I don't know if as much as a hold as it was a takedown.
That's Sergio Kendall. You brought up his story, Brian, earlier. Because Taylor's going to try and put the ball up in the waning seconds. Anthony Allen. Kendall, a guy, a standout collegiate career at Texas, second round 2 years ago. He fell down, fractured his skull, which led to hearing loss in his left ear before his rookie season ever began. He didn't play a single game.
Well, he dropped from a top 15 pick into the second round because of a knee injury at Texas, so the Ravens thought they got a real steal. But then he comes in and he has the unfortunate accident falling down a stairwell and is still recuperating from it. And as I said earlier, this is where he's got to make hay this year because they got to get a return on their investment. They've got a lot of other good players that can do what he does, plus more.
Big first half for Calvin Johnson and the Detroit Lions on offense. 17-9 Detroit at halftime. Our Fox NFL preseason special continues with Kurt Menefee. The halftime report is coming up next. Just about set to begin the second half. Joe Flacco and the Ravens trailing 17-9. And let's go downstairs to Laura Oakman.
Thank you, Tom. We know he's a good quarterback. He threw for 5,000 yards last year, but He's a gentleman. Look how chivalrous Matthew Stafford is. Will you be following me the entire second half holding my umbrella?
You got it. Anytime.
Don't say that. I'll take you up on it. Okay, you were not happy last week about the lack of rhythm that the starters got. 12 of 17, 184 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm thinking that's a little bit better, Matthew.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we had some chunks out there. It took us a while to get going as an offense, but once we did, we got in that rhythm that I was talking about, and it was fun being out there again for sure.
What does that rhythm feel like? Once it clicks like that, what was the difference?
I think we play at a much higher pace. We're moving the ball consistently, just completing passes, getting first downs, and then the big plays come, you know, when they try to move up on us. So that was it was fun.
Thank you for the chivalrous gesture, and I'm going to throw it back to them upstairs. Thanks so much, Matthew.
You got it.
Back up to you guys.
A very pleasant young man is Matthew Stafford. We enjoyed our time with him many times last year, and a couple of big plays in this one tonight. Touchdown to Calvin Johnson, their first score, and then connected with Titus Young for his second touchdown throw.
Well, of all the quarterbacks in the league that are at that emerging elite status, I don't know we can quite put him in the Brady, Breeze, Manning level area yet, but he's getting awful close, particularly in what he did last year.
Follow your favorite team all season long. Go to iTunes.com/NFL. So the Lions get the ball to begin the second half. And you look at the numbers. Big time passing yards for Detroit. Next to nothing on the ground. 111 passing yards for the Ravens, 79 of those from Joe Flacco. Sean Hill, the backup, led the Lions on that final field goal, final minute of the first half. So he's now led this team on 3 scoring drives in limited time here in the preseason. And naturally, we're going to see a lot of the backups here in the second half. And Brian Billick, we began our game tonight.
You talking about what week 2 of the preseason means when you're the head coach. Let's revisit that.
Yeah, this is the time for that second level player to shine. At very least to get the coach to pause to say maybe this guy needs to be on our football team, because going forward that's going to be very hard to do. If at the very least you can get the coach to say, you know what, we need to see more of this young man, that's a good thing.
How much work? You brought up Tyrod Taylor earlier, his comfort level of in a no-huddle offense going back to his days with the Hokies at Virginia Tech. We know Sean Hill is comfortable, and you brought up earlier, we probably are going to see a lot more of Kellen Moore, their number 3 quarterback, here in the second half.
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised to see Sean Hill out here right now. They know he's going to be a capable backup for them. We need to see more of Kellen Moore. He was not in an easy position for them in the second half of the game last week against Cleveland. Did not look real good. Got a penalty here. I think we're going to get a late hit. They like what they see in Kellen Moore. They know what they have in Sean Hill. I don't imagine he'll be in there much longer.
Personal foul, roughing the quarterback, number 42 of the defense. 15-yard automatic first down.
There again, launching, hitting helmet to helmet, that clearly is going to get called. The aiming point. We talk about the discipline on the defense, or on the Detroit Lions. It's the same thing. When you bring pressure, as the Baltimore Ravens do, you've got to have the discipline. It just is the game now. Some people don't like it. They say we're protecting the quarterback too much, but that is the game right now, and you've got to protect the quarterback. It's going to get called. That now has helped the Detroit Lions. The one change that has come, the frustration when guys would just barely brush the helmet with their hand. They have now ruled that back in, that it's got to be with force. So that has cleaned up a little bit and is a rule change for this year.
That flag on the rookie out of Alabama State, Nigel Carr. All right, Mike Pereira, former NFL head of officials. This is something you talked about at length. They tried to clean up a little bit.
And it's exactly what the league is looking for. They've had a couple of good player safety calls here. You got to keep the helmet off of the quarterback anywhere in the head or neck area, period. I know it's difficult, but that's the complete focus of the referee. The helmet, the shoulder, and the forearm, and any contact in the head or neck area, and that is a foul they want called.
Opening minutes of the second half. And a catch is made by Jared Dillard. It'll bring up a third down and long for the Lions. Mike, obviously you do not have a crystal ball. You're not sitting inside the negotiations anymore like you once did. How long reasonably do you expect this situation to linger with the NFL and the officials?
You know, hey, who can predict? You know, in my mind, I know one thing. I think the referees have to come off of some of the things they're asking for, and the league needs to put in a little bit more. It's a negotiation, and both sides have to give a little bit.
Here's my concern, Mike. And we know this league tends to do things in the 11th hour. Let's say it does get done prior just to the beginning of the season. I'm a little concerned. Obviously, the officials are the best in all of professional sports. But normally their off season is getting together as a group, going through the rules. They go to training camp. They have the preseason. They don't have any of that now. They're going to come in cold and rusty for that first game. The quality of playing that first game.
Derek Dimke will let it bounce. Gracie Jackson, I beg your pardon, lets it bounce inside the 10.
That's where it'll be down. We'll get back with Mike Pereira when we return. Second half just underway.
Tonight's game on Fox is sponsored by Corona Extra, who invites you to find your beach.
(17-9). Official dropped a penalty flag. And now we're set to go with Baltimore on offense. Tyrod Taylor still the quarterback. And they give it to Damian Berry. And he's tripped up out of the 20-yard line by Ricardo Silva.
This is where it gets a little bit dicey, because now you're talking about the second half. You put a quarterback in, you got no idea what the team you're facing is going to play, because you really can't look at any film to prepare yourself. You can see they're back to a huddle offense now because they want a little more orchestration to the calls. The no huddle might get a little dicey for them, although we will see some more of it.
Right back into the hands of Damian Berry. Signed as a free agent a year ago out of the University of Miami.
Yep. Mike, let me go back to what we talked about with the officials about if indeed it does get done at the 11th hour, their vulnerability going into the first game.
Well, it's going to get done. I mean, that's what we do know. The question is when, and to me, you know, them missing preseason is not a good thing because they need to hone their skills too. The best thing would be is it gets done after week 3 of the preseason. Give them 1 week to get up to snuff a little bit before the regular season starts.
Well, and that's the frustrating thing for me, and we know it will get done.
Right.
All labor negotiations get done.
Right.
And you'd hate to see it linger into the regular season, even for a week or two, because I promise you, if it can get done 2 weeks into the season, it can get done before the season.
But both sides need to want to get it done, you know, and both sides have to come to the table with, you know, making some concessions.
Ball thrown behind Matt Ball Salad. Rookie out of Temple. That'll bring up a 4th down and 9. So again, a drive stalls for Tyrod Taylor. It's a big night here for Tyrod Taylor. Yes, he was a backup last year, but the guy who's trying to win the number 2 job along with Taylor this year is Curtis Painter. And Painter with a lot more game action. Spending time, of course, in Indianapolis after Peyton Manning went down, and we'll see him tonight. Big punt. Backing up Patrick Edwards to the 19-yard line. Flag down. A 59-yard punt. There you get a look at Painter.
Keep in mind, Painter came in with Jimmy Caldwell, former head coach of the Colts, that's now the quarterback coach here. So that's a pretty good endorsement. Obviously, Jimmy Caldwell spoke up for Painter, saying, look, this young man can help us. He can be a solid
backup.
backup.
Block in the back. Number 41 of the return team. 10-yard penalty. First down.
Rashard Langford, they just signed him.
Yeah, you can pull off late all you want. Once you get that initial contact and push, it's going to get called.
Sean Hill remaining at quarterback for the Lions. Standing to his right, to your left at home, number 71, Riley Reef. First-round draft choice by the Lions out of the University of Iowa. And my, has he been impressive. They are so excited at what this young man has done through training camp. He's gotten a lot of reps for the first team. Their longtime left tackle, Jeff Backus, has been bothered by a thumb injury, broke his thumb at the beginning of camp. He's had back issues of late. And they believe this guy's got a chance to be a good one for a long time.
He is a dominating run blocker. He's got to get better technically in his pass protection. But when was the last time a lineman came out of Iowa, Kurt Ferenz, and him not being good? This guy's the real deal. Dominating in the running game. They love this guy. He will be in the starting lineup at some point during the season.
Second down and 8, and they pitch it to Keelan Williams, and that'll be good enough for a first down. Reef, a former state wrestling champion.
And that just tells you the balance you're talking about. This is Sergio Kendall down. Boy, you don't want to see this. Injuries has been the thing with Sergio Kendall. Again, this was a top 15 pick projected when the Ravens were able to get him in the second round, and he just has had a series of injuries that have kept him from really realizing his potential. Looks like he just kind of falls on the back foot of Williams. Maybe he just got the wind knocked out of him. Sergio Kendall's in a battle to be on this football team.
Joik Bell into the backfield. Signed off the Saints practice squad last year out of Wayne State. And that's dropped by Austin Wells. Let's go back to Reef for a minute. You were starting to talk about him.
Well, he's a guy coming out. The only knock, and it wasn't a knock, you know, when you talk about Matt Khalil being the high draft choice and clearly the #1 pick. They kept talking about Reef dominating, the best run blocker in all of college football. But pass protection-wise, he was going to need some work. You knew he would get there. And Jim Schwartz, Scott Lanahan, the offensive coordinator, boy, their eyes light up when you talk about Riley Reef. And both talked about what a dominating run blocker he is right now, the best they have on that offensive line. If they're going to run the ball more, we've talked a great deal about that this game, this is a good one to start with it as well, because this young man, and again, the pedigree that he has, he's just so physical, and his ability to get down into that second level, which is so important in the running game. And it's just a matter of reps for the technique in terms of pass protection. It's not like he has a liability there. He just hasn't done enough of it, and will get better and better.
Third down, incomplete. And they believe that Reef is more than capable of playing tackle, right side, left side, or guard.
Watch how he kicks out here to that wide end. That's the toughest thing for a lineman to do, to deal with this wide rush guy, because he's got to be patient. Typically they get out in front of themselves. They get too impatient, bend at the waist, and move their hands out in front of their body. He was very patient there, waiting for the rush end to come to him.
Well, the battle is on for the punter's job we brought up earlier for the Lions. They had Ryan Donahue kicking the first half, Ben Graham here in the second. And this is Asa Jackson, still on his feet. Cuts it back to the other side. 25, still on his feet. Penalty flag is down. He'll go to the end zone. Will it stand? Asa Jackson, the rookie out of Cal Poly. 5th round pick in this year's draft. 85 yards. But again, is it a score or coming back? Much like Deontay Thompson, he's still pretty excited about it. He should be.
Yeah, because it's still on film. He got done when he needed out of that in terms of the coaches seeing it. So whether it counts or not, it counted for
return,
him.
holding, 43 return team, 10-yard penalty, first down.
So Jackson's 85-yard punt return is denied. Well, a very impressive return for Asa Jackson, but not to be after the holding penalty. But Brian, I got to ask you, I mean, if you're a coach, is that something you're going to remember from Asa Jackson?
Absolutely. It doesn't disappear from the film. It's not like when you're going to look at it tomorrow, it doesn't show up because it was a penalty. So Asa Jackson, it sounds selfish that I don't mean for it, but he doesn't care. It gets called back. It's on film. He did a nice job returning the ball. He got done with that play what he needed to get done.
Tyrod Taylor, at quarterback once more for the Ravens. And he's going to put it up. Looking down the field. Incomplete. An eye on Deontay Thompson. There's no call in the field. The crowd is just reacting to putting it back up on the replay board. Justin Miller was in coverage. Taylor just 4 out of 14. Flags in the secondary. And Taylor tiptoes out of bounds. Those flags might have to be repainted or put back in some kind of a yellow dye. They're getting worn out tonight.
Well, we'll see who it's on. One of the good things about the replacement officials, at least last week, was we did have fewer calls, which was nice. It was nice to let them play.
Number 27 on the defense. 5-yard penalty, automatic, first down.
And the judgment of the officials, you know, we get after the regular officials as well in terms of the judgment. Was it holding? Was it not holding? Was it pass interference? Was it not pass interference? That part of it's going to be okay, I think. It's, as Mike Pereira told us, it's the administration of the game and the way it slows down with these new officials. That's probably the bigger concern.
No running room there. It brings up second down.
Decidedly different tempo for the Ravens. You can see now they're going to the huddle, their huddle offense. They've come out of their no huddle or sugar huddle. Having said that, right on cue, they go right into a no huddle.
Good protection. Catch made by Allen. And then dropped.
You know, Jim Caldwell, as we talked about, has come from the Indianapolis Colts. He's been a big effect on this no huddle offense, obviously coming from Indy. And Jim Caldwell has been a big, Cam Cameron, the offensive coordinator, will tell you, has been a big asset as they make this transition into no huddle offense.
And running ability again on display by Taylor, but he is tripped up by Justin Miller. Miller, a young man out of football the last 2 years, and found himself in and out of a little bit of trouble, but has gotten his life back together, and he's hoping that he can find a spot on this Lions secondary when the season opens in mid-September.
And there's plenty of opportunity, because that's the one area on the defense that has got to be addressed. They drafted 3 DBs in the draft. They're hurt at the safety position. Louis Delmas has not been active for a while, so there's plenty of opportunities for these young players to make this team.
Well done on the punt by Cook. Down to the 7. Will it be Hill, or do we get our first look at Kellen Moore? We'll know in a moment.
There's a punting duel going on in Detroit, and here you can see Ben Graham, who's no one's better at this rugby style. Look at the way the point of the ball is going down. And why do you do that? Because the ball spins back and leaves you that great field position inside the 20. So the battle for the punting position between Graham and Donahue is in full force for the Lions.
And now we'll get a look at Kellen Moore, the undrafted rookie, despite a simply spectacular collegiate career at Boise State, a 4-year starter. Call ** NFL to download NFL Mobile now and get coverage of every NFL game. Kellen Moore in his 4 years as a starting quarterback under Chris Peterson at Boise State, 50 wins, 3 losses. 3. Joik Bell takes a handoff.
When you talk about the success of a Kellen Moore, you can't just dismiss it. Now, this guy is small in stature. Obviously, Boise, an incredible program. But you talk about the productivity of an Andy Dalton. He's just a winner. You also talk about a Colt McCoy. Struggled a little bit in this league. So he's battling to show that he belongs in the league. Scott Linehan told us maybe the smartest rookie quarterback he's ever been around.
Right on target on that completion up to the 38-yard line. It's Nate Hughes.
And when you've got a Sean Hill, an established backup that they're very comfortable with, it's great to have a guy like Kellen Moore. The question is, do you keep him on an active roster? Or like more and more teams are doing, can you get him on the developmental squad? Give him a year to go ahead and develop and not have to count him on the active roster. More and more teams are doing that.
Moore threw 142 touchdown passes during his career at Boise State, the second highest total in NCAA football history. Threw for nearly 15,000 yards.
And that last throw is the kind of throw that Kellen Moore is going to have to show he can make from the pocket. As small as he is, it gets awful big down there. You have to throw with anticipation. Doesn't necessarily have that rocket arm to be able to just throw what he sees and fire it in, say like a Jay Cutler. So obviously he's got some assets, but he's going to have to hone his game to fit in the NFL.
Found a seam right there up to the 45-yard line. Jarrett Dillard, his second reception.
And this is what he will do well. He will find those intermediate and short passes. He'll know where the open guy is based on the coverage. It's the throws down the field out of the pocket that he's going to have to show he can develop.
Well, you know, all these backup receivers, and we talked to Jim Schwartz about it at length yesterday. Pretty much there are 4 guys that are lead pipe cinches to be on this Lions roster, barring, of course, any kind of injury when the season begins. Calvin Johnson, Titus Young, Nate Burleson, and a second-round pick, if healthy enough to go, Ryan Broyles. Then you have 7 guys that are fighting it out for 2 spots. And, Brian, you've been there, right there in the trenches. I mean, these guys right now, I mean, their professional career as a football player could hang in a balance on 2 quarters of football.
Well, just a miscue in the backfield. That certainly doesn't help the young Mr. Moore. But to make your point, and I love Jim Schwartz's term, he said these guys are going to have to learn to sing for their supper, which basically means beyond just their abilities as a receiver, to be that 5th guy. They're not only competing with other receivers, they're competing with that DB. Do you keep the extra nickel guy? Do you keep the extra outside linebacker? Do you have a special teams presence? That's where you're going to have to, as he says, sing for your supper to show a value to keep you on the active roster.
It's where a guy like Dominique Curry, you just saw him a moment ago, number 18. catch and spin by Joy Bell. But back to Curry. You talked about the special teams part of it. Both of these head coaches and staffs are having to think about and make these kinds of decisions. You know, Curry is 6'2", 203 pounds. Big physical guy, a guy that could help you on special teams.
And the receiver can if he is big enough. Jake Reed, when I was in Minnesota, you know, he was a big physical player that was our best special teamer. And at the end of the day, what allowed him to survive was being that special teamer that then began, okay, he's going to be on the team. He's going to, he could be on the active 46 or 45 if he's good enough. So now it's a matter of he has time to develop as that wide receiver. So that, you got the offensive coaches battling for it. Boy, look at the big upside, trying to tell the kid, you got to be good on special teams. You got a DB who's probably better right now on special teams. So it really is a special teams battle as opposed to a receiver versus receiver battle.
4th down and a punt. Asa Jackson waiting back. Fair catch.
Before we go to break, did I catch you in a senior moment there for a second, wondering where you used to coach before Baltimore?
That's how old I am now. I had to go back a few. I've been with you so long, I forget where I was before I was with you.
With a driving.
Well, don't miss the biggest event of the season, Fox Fantasy Football. Easiest league to set up. Fox Fantasy Football inside information. It's always free to play. You sign up today at foxsports.com/fantasy. Who would be a better fantasy player than Ray Rice?
Oh my gosh. I got to tell you, we got a lot of stuff from these fantasy guys when I was coaching. Because they got this thing analyzed, every quarterback reception to the left on grass versus turf, Thursday versus Saturday versus Sunday night, on the road versus home. It's amazing the amount of stuff these guys generate.
No, I mean, are you being tongue-in-cheek here?
No, I'm
you
serious.
Really mean as a head football coach in the NFL that you actually were able to gather some very valuable, well, I mean, why wouldn't it? Statistical data, right?
Exactly right. And you got a bunch of probably unemployed guys that have nothing to do but sit and add up the numbers. And there's some good stuff in there, I'm telling you.
Well, a lot of those guys, the baseball crowd, they call it sabermetrics, and most of those guys came out of Ivy League school. And Taylor avoids a safety and turns it into a positive gain, a first down carry up to the 21.
That was an arm length away from becoming a safety here. Steps out of it, and now look at the speed with this guy. It's awful hard not to recognize the athletic talent, even for a guy that maybe struggles from the pocket. His ability to run around and make plays outside the design of the offense.
I tell you, limited time at night, this guy right here has been pretty impressive. Bobby Rainey. This guy is having a good training camp and a good first 2 games in the preseason.
And we talk about the value of running backs in the NFL. You talk about a 2nd-round Ray Rice. We've already seen Bernard Pierce, a 3rd-round guy. This guy's an undrafted free agent. You can see why that position's devalued a little bit in the draft, because you can pick up quality guys in the 2nd, 3rd round, after the draft is over. Every team's got them.
Ray Rice just signed that 5-year contract extension prior to the deadline. And next up, apparently on the docket for the Ravens, is trying to lock up Joe Flacco.
That's going to get done. Joe Flacco's not going to leave here. I can promise you, Ozzie Newsome, John Harbaugh, they know he's their guy. They feel like they've got a franchise quarterback. It's typical of negotiations. It's back and forth, back and forth. We asked Joe about that, and I think he's got the demeanor to kind of hold that at arm's length and say, look, I'm past that right now. Our guys will talk to my guys, and they'll get. Some guys can't do that. They get too drawn into it. Flacco, I think, has the demeanor to hold it at arm's length and it not be a distraction during the season.
Guy's a winner, man. I know he hadn't been to the Super Bowl yet. I know he hadn't obviously won a Super Bowl yet. But 4 years in the league, 44 wins, playoffs every single year, and you started your first season
Big hit by Sean Jones.
And
Deontay Thompson and legal.
Yeah, didn't hit the head. See, you can do it. That's the kind of throw Tyrod Taylor. He's a strong arm quarterback, and most strong arm quarterbacks. Look how flat that ball comes in. Had no loft to it at all. You've got to be able to drop it in at times, and it's everything tends to be at one speed for Tyrod Taylor.
Alphonso Smith down on one knee in the secondary. Alphonso Smith went into training camp and still in a battle with the rookie Bill Bentley out of Louisiana Lafayette to be the starting corner. But Jacob Lacey has had such an impressive preseason. He's in that mix now.
And keep in mind, when you talk about in a battle, you can be in a battle, maybe not with one of the outside corners, but in the nickel spot. Given his size, most difficult spot on the field is that nickel back, because it's inside in the slot, having to run with guys in a three. It's basketball on grass. He's got the skills to go along with that. So you compete in the secondary in a lot of different. It's not just with a corner. The outside corners, the nickel corners. There's a lot of different ways to make this team.
Final play, perhaps. Nope, going to run out of bounds. 6 seconds remain here in the third quarter.
We talk about the kicking battles going on with Cundiff and Tucker here in Baltimore, and on the punting side of Detroit, there is no competition with Sam Cook. He's been good for a long time, one of those hidden weapons.
So the final seconds tick off in the third. 17-9 Lions. Our Fox NFL preseason special continues after a break from your local station. Well, set to begin the fourth quarter here in Baltimore.
Well, obviously, you're going to coach this thing to the end. You know, there's some guys here you're talking to that may not be here in a couple weeks, but it doesn't matter. You coach them up and see what you can get out of them.
So Cook has it blocked. And the Lions are going to get the football at the 34-yard line. That's Willie Young. Gunther Cunningham described him as a dangerous man. He's only in his third year out of NC State and just now beginning to come into his own as a defensive lineman.
And when you have, and he's a good athlete, when you have this type of athlete on the interior defensive line that can help you on special teams like that, that's a bonus. We talk about singing for your supper, finding that extra level to impact this team. You saw it right there with Young.
So Young so far in limited time in the preseason. In the opener against Cleveland, he had a sack, forced a fumble, recovered a fumble, and now he blocks a punt. I mean, he's not in any danger of not making this Lions team. He's part of that 8-9 man defensive line rotation they like to use. Catch is made, short completion. Kellen Moore finding Nate Hughes.
And again, we're seeing in Moore, these are his types of throws. Get it out of the hand quick, the spread it out you saw in Boise, the flats, the quick screens to the outside.
Joyce Bell. You know, as we're looking at many of these backups, Brian, from a coaching perspective, you know, it's almost like it's a cliche. You could, you know, hit the play button and hear a lot of the same coach speak that I like to review from time to time about. And, you know, Jim Schwartz telling us yesterday, you know, I really do want to run the ball more. How many guys say that, and then how many guys do it? Of course, it all comes down to, do you have the players to be able to do it? Well, you walk out of here, your second preseason game of the year. Are you any closer, if you're Jim Schwartz and Scott Linehan, to knowing whether or not your team can run the football?
Well, this game has been, is now, and will always be about talent. And you're exactly right. talent the running back position, talent the offensive line. The thing that flies in the face of it that they'll take comfort in is every coach wants to run the ball. But when you look at the New York Giants last year, the Green Bay Packers last year, the New England Patriots last year, teams that did not run the ball particularly well, yet played at a championship level, it's the nature of the game right now.
But again, back to something we brought up earlier, we'll continue this. 5 seasons a quarterback has thrown for 5,000 yards. Not one of those teams won the Super Bowl.
Tonight's game is sponsored by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
All right, Brian Billick, your summer safari.
How about that?
Where did you go?
A week out in the bush in Botswana. It is, as they say, that life-changing event. It is amazing to be in proximity, and there was a few libations in there as well. Find yourself on a hill away from the animals. We had a great time. Unbelievable hospitality. South Africa as well. It is a spectacular place. Highly recommend it.
And I assume that your wife enjoyed your company on that trip?
Absolutely.
From time to time, she tells me she's not sure.
She kept trying to push me outside of the vehicle. Okay, I didn't know what that was all about, but.
Well, you look inside this NFC North, and, Brian, a lot of people feel like in the order in which they finished last year, Green Bay won it, Lions were second, Bears were third, Vikings were fourth. Now, these are your predictions we're going through. You think it's going to stay the same?
Yeah, 15-1 Green Bay Packer team is more under the radar than any 15-1 team should be. I think they're going to be better. The Detroit-Chicago one's going to be interesting. That could flip. Chicago's going to be a better team. I think this Detroit team, notwithstanding the lack of a running game, as he cranks off a 20-yard run and then fumbles. Oh, my goodness.
At the 1-yard line, he fumbled it. They spot that ball at the 1-yard line, I believe. Omar Brown. Brown, a guy responsible for 3 turnovers against Atlanta. And he picks up a fumble recovery. He had an interception and 2 fumble recoveries in the first preseason game.
And Brown is one of those guys that John Harbaugh talked to us about. One of those young guys that, and here's the amazing thing for both these teams. Both these teams are playoff caliber teams. Virtually their entire draft classes could likely make this team. That's 7 guys, 7 and 8 guys. That's unheard of on a team that's pretty good, that you might find, maybe 2 or 3 rookies can make the squad. There's a good chance a vast majority of both their draft classes could make these teams.
By the way, that fumble was caused by Christian Thompson, the rookie out of South Carolina State. He was taken in the 4th round of this year's draft. Taylor's still in there, and still no sign of Curtis Painter. So you believe the Lions are still the second best team in the NFC North?
You bring up a good point. You've talked about they had an incredible turnover ratio. They generated a lot of turnovers.
Yep.
That's a lot to do back to back. So that if they don't generate those turnovers, but there's no reason to think that they can't approach that. Van den Bosch and Averill off the back end. The secondary is going to be a question mark in terms of giving up big plays.
A lot of people feel like the Bears are dramatically improved. Are you buying into that?
I am. They're getting Brandon Marshall. They now have a go-to guy, and the best thing about that, Devin Hester doesn't have to be the #1 guy. He'll take the top off the defense. You feel better about using him on special teams more. They got Michael Bush to back up Matt Forte. The offensive line's the same. They're going to be solid on defense, and with Mike Tice being the coordinator, they're going to recommit to running the ball.
Neutral zone infraction, number 96 on the defense. 5-yard penalty, first down.
It's big Andre flew on. All right, how about the rugged AFC North, where 3 teams in this division went to the playoffs a year ago? You think Baltimore repeats as division champion?
Yeah, I see nothing to think that they're not going to be there again. Like we just talked about, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, this is going to be interesting. I worried about Pittsburgh. the transition. The defense is getting older. Roethlisberger obviously is a factor, but I like what they did with the draft with the offensive line. I think that's going to be huge. They got to get Mike Wallace back in camp early on. Let's remember these guys won a lot of games with Ben Roethlisberger not playing in the first part of the season. So, but Cincinnati, I think Marvin Lewis has done a great job. Andy Dalton, A.J. Green, what they've done. Grisham at tight end. They get Shipley back in the slot. Mike Zimmer does more with less defensively than any coach I know of. I think Cincinnati and Pittsburgh are going to be right there. Cleveland is Cleveland.
Well, they're trying to rebuild that thing.
Number 70 on the offense. 5-yard penalty, first down.
You know, oftentimes you hear the word trending in professional sports these days. And, you know, Brian, you know, you brought up the Steelers. And that's the Ravens' big rival. I mean, let's be honest about it here now. And both of them finished 12-4 last year, but the Ravens swept the Steelers. In fact, the Ravens swept the entire division, and that's saying something.
It's hard to do
when you're talking about two other playoff teams in your own division. But, you know, I have a hard time believing the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be minus 13 in the turnover department again here in 2012. I mean, you get that thing even back to even.
Right.
That's 13-3 rather than 12-4.
And let's look at Baltimore's schedule. They open up with a big game against Cincinnati. It follows with the Eagles, the Patriots. They do get the Browns, but the Chiefs, the Cowboys, and the Texans. That's a pretty good start.
Taylor. I mean, you talk about it. I mean, it is a treacherous schedule now. Nationally televised games in 3 of their first 4, including the division rival Bengals, as Brian mentioned, plus you get a rematch of the AFC Championship game against New England from last year. You get a bye week in there.
Yeah, that one clearly hit the ground, no question.
Following the bye week, you go to 4 out of 6 games that are on the road, including 1 at Pittsburgh. You get the Steelers again. 2 weeks later, they play Pittsburgh twice in a 3-week stretch, and then they end the year against Denver, the Giants, and at Cincinnati. That's one thing about the AFC North this year, Brian. They're locking up against the NFC East this season. And then some games out of the division against Denver. Top 3 teams all play Denver this year now with Peyton Manning. These are 3 very, very tough schedules.
It is.
For those 3 playoff teams from last year.
I do think there'll be at least 2 teams out of the division that'll go to the playoffs. I don't know that they'll go 3 like they did last year, but they'll get 2.
Down to the final 10 minutes. Sliding catch made by Patrick Edwards.
We're going to see what Coach Billick has to say about the other divisions around the National Football League.
$10:14 to play. Is your fantasy football legit? Sign up for the official NFL Fantasy Football League only on NFL.com with free live scoring, instant video highlights. Go legit. Sign up for free at NFL.com/fantasy. Couple of touchdown passes tonight from Matthew Stafford. One of them to his main man Calvin Johnson, the other to Titus Young. Sean Hill led Detroit on its other scoring drive tonight, getting a field goal. Lions turn it over at the 1-yard line. Their last possession. Let's go downstairs along the sideline to Laura.
I'm standing here with Ray Rice, and I want you all to know I do not ask them to hold the umbrella for me. Ray took that umbrella from me because you are such a gentleman, I know.
Yes, I was raised by my mama, and I don't want you to get wet. That's how people get sick.
I know, I appreciate that. And every time I interview you, I love it because I can see straight into your eyes.
That's right.
But
I see eye to eye.
I know, but I wonder how in the world you can make every defense miss when I can stand here and look you in the eye.
A little bit of deception. I try to get away from the big guys. I kind of hide a little bit, hide, and then when I get out on them, I try to show them I'm a tough guy. But, it's the preseason, so it's all about, trying to execute while you're in there. And, we did a pretty good job, and obviously we're trying to win, but, it's the preseason, and we know what it means.
Tell me about your offense, because there's been so much talk about quicker pace, about no huddle, about sugar huddle. It makes Joe smile. It makes the wide receiver smile. I'm wondering if it makes a running back smile.
Yeah, one thing about being a running back now is I think the threat of running past. And when I'm in there, I don't just possess the threat of just running the ball. I can leak out of the backfield, catch a screen, and I think it makes defenses think. They can't actually set a blitz to you when you got a tempo, because sometimes I might be free releasing.
You can run, you can catch, you can block, and you are so chivalrous. Thank you very much, and you can hold an umbrella. I'm taking it back. I'm letting you go.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I'll get wet. I'm already still a little bit wet from the game, but it's all right.
Let me hold it for you. Back up to you guys. Thank you, Ray.
I'm good to go. Hit him.
Oh, another pleasant young man, Ray Rice. Great smile on that kid. All right, let's visit the NFC East. Of course, the Giants are defending Super Bowl champions. The Cowboys have just been wrecked with injury so far here during training camp in the early part of the preseason. You like the Eagles to come out on top, Ryan Billick?
Yeah, notwithstanding going from the dream team to a dynasty and yet having not made the playoffs last year, I think all that stuff can be behind them. I think all the things they anticipated with the players they added. Obviously, the key is Michael Vick's got to stay healthy. Without Michael Vick, and you could say that about any team if they lose their starting quarterback. New York, everybody worries about, what's the aftermath of winning a Super Bowl? Do you lose your focus with Tom Coughlin? Are you kidding me? The Dallas Cowboys are going to be better, but they've got to show they can do it on a consistent basis in the big games. Washington Redskins are going to be better. I love RG3. Are they going to be better enough to challenge these three? Don't know about that. And Mike Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan are under a little bit of heat there, but I think they got a great one in RG3.
And of course, I think I speak, Brian, I know I do for you and so many others and our entire Fox family, and our thoughts and prayers and condolences out to Andy Reid and his entire family after losing his son when the team was still in training camp. So they certainly will have some of that, emotion. I would imagine those guys love Andy Reid. And they know what, or at least they're trying to relate to what he's going through. I don't know if there's any way possible to try and relate to losing a child. But certainly Andy Reid now back, and we look forward to seeing him again soon. Now the NFC South is a division somewhat near and dear to your heart. You and I have seen a lot of these teams, especially the Saints and the Falcons, the last couple of years.
Let's remember just how good the Saints are. Now, I know they're dealing with a lot of stuff, and that's going to be the question. They hit that bump in the road and the change at the coaching position. But this is going to consolidate these guys a little bit. They're going to, it's us against the world, and you can do a lot with that. Atlanta, obviously, they not only need to make the playoffs, they need to go to the next level. Carolina Panthers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. These are two teams that can do a lot of damage. What will Cam Newton do now in his second year? And obviously in Tampa Bay, I thought they had the best offseason in the National Football League. Vincent Jackson, Carl Nix. They got Eric Wright at the DB position. They say Josh Freeman looks fitter, looks as good as he's looked. Greg Schiano will bring in a different mentality to them. They're a team that are going to be a factor. From top to bottom, and you always look at the bottom of any division and say, well, how good is the division? The bottom of that division is going to be pretty good.
Were you surprised Greg Schiano got that job?
Nothing surprised me with regards to how it goes in the NFL right now, but he's got enough of an NFL background. It's clearly in a different direction than they had with Raheem Morris, and so he'll do a good job.
Contact made on the far sideline. No flag. Dominique Curry getting locked over there with Shockey Brown. A reminder, coming up next, a DirecTV post-game show. We'll have our play of the game and a post-game interview. Standing by with Laura. Can't wait for the regular season to get underway. We just talked about the NFC South. You and I, opening weekend, will be in Kansas City, where the Atlanta Falcons will match up with the Chiefs here on Fox. Part of our opening weekend doubleheader. Of course, Kansas City had the great year. They won the division 2 years ago, then had so many injuries. Wheels fell off. Made a coaching change. That ought to be a good opening.
I thought Kansas City would be a place Peyton Manning would go to. You know, you got Dwayne Bowe and Jonathan Baldwin receiver. You get Tony Moeaki back at tight end. You get Jamal Charles back. Good solid defense. I'm not sure what steered him away from that. Of course, it comes down to what can Matt Castle do with that group.
We're going to take a look at that AFC West, where, of course, Peyton Manning now plays. Third down, pass attempt broken up by Asa Jackson. So out comes the field goal unit. They're going to send out somebody other than Jason Hanson. It'll be Derek Dimke on to try a field goal here. You like Kansas City to get back to the top in front of Denver?
I do. I think they're the most complete team. Now Denver, Peyton Manning, there's going to be a transition period there. San Diego, obviously they're playing for North Turner's job. The Raiders have a lot to overcome. I like what they did with Reggie McKenzie and Dennis Allen, but they got a long way to go.
30-yard field goal by Dimke is good. We've got a couple of other divisions left to cover. Down to 4:27 left, and the Lions in command.
With Pizza Hut's $10.
Well, we have been very fortunate with the weather here tonight. We've only had a few of the raindrops. They were talking about severe thunderstorms. Of course, maybe I ought to knock on wood here.
Well, as you know, I live here.
Let me knock on your head. Come here,
The last couple of weeks, this has been the MO. Something blows in late in the afternoon, the evening. We've had some pretty good storms blow through here. We are lucky to get this in.
Well, here's Bobby Rainey. And he's up to the 25-yard line. So they're going to bring in Curtis Painter, see him run a little bit of this hurry up, I would imagine. Try and get him in the end zone, his first action tonight. Curtis Painter took over for Peyton Manning after he was injured for part of last season in Indianapolis. Now in his first year with Baltimore. Made 8 starts, played in 9 games. And now they're going to have him run this hurry-up offense and try and get him down the field. Completion up to the 34. Here's Laura.
Okay, well, I am standing here with Joe Flacco. But you are going to have to come down with us, down to us, because when the offense is on the field, we are being told that Joe cannot talk. So I'm throwing it back to you right now.
All right, fair enough.
That's a limitation, that you can't talk when you're on offense. I don't know what you quite do with that.
Well, he's going to stand and watch Curtis Painter do his thing. Well, we certainly thank both of the teams for all of their cooperation tonight. Throw right on the money to Dorian Graham. So Painter again in this hurry-up offense. You know, you just see the veteran presence here of Painter. He's not been a guy that's been a regular starter, although the 8 starts last year in Indianapolis, but just a whole different feel right now.
And he's obviously well schooled in this style of play coming from Indianapolis. So he's as comfortable with this as any quarterback they have on the roster.
Take a look at the NFC West. Dominated last year by the 49ers. One of the up-and-coming powers in the NFC, and you're buying.
Yeah, well, the next two, Arizona and Seattle, they still haven't determined a quarterback, and that's not a good place to be. St. Louis, obviously a long way to go. Jeff Fisher will get that thing corrected. Sam Bradford, at least there's stability at the quarterback position. But Arizona and Seattle, they got to get their quarterback decision decided, and decided quick.
Barry out of the backfield of the 38. Niners got a chance to be real good again.
They really do. I love the pickups in the offseason. Randy Moss.
You like that move?
Oh, boy. You know, he's in a certain situation, and where he is in his career, he's going to do some spectacular things for him.
Wow. So you would have been a guy who would have taken a chance. You were with Randy Moss when he first came in the NFL. You drafted him there in
very clear
Minnesota
about the role for him. There again, you need strength at the quarterback position, so that's the one thing. Alex Smith will be strong, but more importantly, I think Jim Harbaugh will be strong, and someone that Randy Moss will respond to in the way he deals with the players. So I think it was a great move and really a minimal risk.
Well, on the 4th down, they're going to have Painter go for it. And he will convert on 4th down. It's Bruce Figgins, a tight end.
you can see Painter's comfort zone with getting everybody where they belong. Again, the Indy influence on this no huddle of the Baltimore Ravens. The quick decision as to where he wants to go with the ball.
AFC East. Still the class of the division, you believe, Coach Billick, the New England Patriots.
Yeah, they're absolutely. And New York being 2 has less to do with New York than it does. I'm not buying into Buffalo the way people are yet. There's some potential there. Getting Mario Williams certainly be better on defense. That style of offense, can it be sustained?
You know, I got to ask you though. I mean, there's always drama in New York. You know, like in baseball, there's always drama in Boston. You can go on and on.
So why would you add to it?
The Jets. What's your opinion on how the whole thing's going to play out?
I think on paper it looks great. You can understand what a guy like Tim Tebow could bring to it, but I think it's got disaster written all over it. It may be good for Tim Tebow. It might even be good for the Jets. It's not going to be good for Mark Sanchez.
And when you say that, and again, I understand, then you don't have a crystal ball. But I mean, are you talking about wheels falling off potentially here?
Well, what was their difficulty last year? The locker room, holding together, being together as a team. They hit that bump in the road. When you have uncertainty at the quarterback position, it is very hard to overcome. And I'll put it this way. Think of the top 15, not top 10, but top 15 quarterbacks in the league, wherever you want it to be. Which of them, and I'm talking about getting down to the Matthew Staffords, the Schaubs, the Flaccos, the Cutlers, would you take them off the field to put Tim Tebow in? If you've got a quarterback you're willing to take off the field to put Tim Tebow in, no matter how you want to use them, then you're saying, I'm not sure I've got one of those guys.
Tony Raji hurrying out onto the field. This will be Justin Tucker, his second field goal try tonight, trying to win a job. Hit from 50, his only attempt already in this one. This from 45. Well, he hits that thing square, doesn't he?
And it goes right down the middle. That's the thing they talked about. When he hits that thing, it goes straight.
Tucker's an interesting young man. He speaks a number of different languages, and we'll get back to him a little bit later on. Now Joe Flacco is available.
Yeah, the very patient and kind Joe Flacco who waited that out with us. Okay, tell me about this new offense. You've talked about wanting to air it out more. You're going to get your wish. More no huddle, more sugar huddle. You're already smiling. When this offense does what it's designed to do, what's it going to look like?
What's what?
What's it going to look like?
Hopefully it'll look a little bit of what it looked like tonight, and we'll just be able to get in the red zone and finish off. Felt like we were able to move the ball well, and we were able to get a good tempo going, and get up to the line of scrimmage, and kind of control the pace and get those guys off rhythm a little bit on the other side of the ball. But the important thing is that when we get down in the red zone, we're going to have to make some plays and get in the end zone, because if we continue to kick field goals all day, it's still going to be tough sledding in there.
Would you be stunned if I asked you a Joe Flacco / does not get respect question?
Would I be what?
Stunned if I did not ask that? A little bit. You would be.
I don't know. It's whatever.
You are used to everybody picking you apart. Going into your 5th year, I want you to do that to yourself. Tell me where you are. Tell me what your biggest strength is right now as a quarterback. Tell me what you're still working on.
Well, I'm just working on getting us up and getting us going as an offense, and getting us to be, getting us over that hump. I mean, we feel like we got the talent here, and it's my job to get this whole team going and running in an organized fashion and the way we really want it to be. And it reflects in how many points and how much points we'll put on the board. I feel like I'm doing a good job of that at the same time, and working towards that. And I feel like it, so much of what quarterbacks do in this league, it gets judged and looked at, and it's all fair, because we're the guys that are usually getting paid the most money, so it comes with the territory. But so much of what we do is through hard work and practice, and myself getting all of our guys to buy in and go out there and do the right things. And then it's, when we get out here on game day, we all got to be working together, and those guys got to come up and ready to play, and I got to show up and be ready to play. So much of how they play is relying on me, and so much of how I play is relying on those guys. And that's why, as when you look at offensive football, you have to have 11 guys working in sync, and if you don't, if one guy's off, then you usually don't have a good day.
Joe, thanks so much for your time. Have a great season.
Thank you.
Back to you guys.
Well, I tell you what, Brian Billick, you live in this area, obviously. You've called it home for, over, 20 years now almost. Golly day, you and I travel to a lot of cities around the National Football League that would be celebrating what Joe Flacco and John Harbaugh have done here in Baltimore. As that onside kick is recovered by the Ravens. That was beautifully done. The kick by Justin Tucker. And again, there's Omar Brown. I mean, this is a guy now in 2 preseason games, has an interception, 3 fumble recoveries, and now an onside kick.
This is beautiful. Look at the bounce. It bounces beautifully. You got to come up and take out that initial wave, but there has to be the next guy behind it to deal with it. He came up and got taken out early. That left nothing but the Ravens in behind it. A beautifully executed onside kick.
Deontay Thompson, the rookie out of Florida, getting the hand on it. So again, Painter back in there, but just to finish that thought, I mean, 4 years for Joe Flacco. Well, that's mighty tough picking to be picking that guy apart.
I think the way he played in the championship game against New England, I think we're past that. Again, having lived in this area, I think the fans are always going to be critical of a quarterback at certain times, but I think they recognize what they have in Joe Flacco now, and that second guessing, I think, is going to be at a minimum this year.
44 wins in 4 years. Man. Painter throws it away. All right, Brian, walk me through. We get asked this. I asked you this question because as a football fan, and we're close to the 2-minute warning, so maybe we'll save it until after this play. If you're a head football coach tonight and you're John Harbaugh, I mean, it's going to be a long night for both these head coaches, especially Jim Schwartz having to travel. But for this Ann Arbor, Michigan native, John Harbaugh, the rest of tonight and tomorrow, how is it different than anything else that has happened thus far during training camp and a preseason? So I'm going to let everybody out there hang on. Because normally this is pretty interesting stuff. When you talk about actually the hour-by-hour, day-by-day things a head coach and a coaching staff go through. NFL's back. 3 weeks away from the season opening. All right, 1:55 left. All right, what's John Harbaugh doing tonight?
Well, it turns into quick evaluation mode. They're going to pick through this film.
You mean literally all night tonight, or are they back at it early?
No, but they'll be back at it early because they got to move on. Remember, the starters are going to get a lion's share of the snaps in this next game. They'll do a little more game planning for that, and then they're going to isolate who they want to look at and what situations they want to put them in, both in practice and in this 3rd preseason game.
Are you then to determining who's going to be a part of your football team, barring, of course, always barring injury?
I think if you were to put their hand to the flame on both coaches, they could probably tell you 50 of the 53 right now. They're going to make the final 53-man roster. I would think the back end, now notwithstanding injury, obviously, but they're going to have a pretty good idea. It's that 51st, 52nd, 53rd player that you just lament. As we talked about, both these teams have some depth, particularly at the receiver position. Baltimore always has depth on the defensive side of the ball, and you realize that when you let a guy go, particularly in Baltimore, someone else is going to pick him up. There's no skating them through the waivers because they're going to, John Harbaugh talked to us about obviously in Indianapolis, Chuck Pagano. He's very intimately aware of these players. They need players. I can see a lot of these guys get cut. You think, well, maybe we can squeeze them through on waivers and we'll get them back on developmental. Nope, a guy like Chuck Pagano in Indianapolis is going to jump all over him.
Well, the roster goes down to 80 players on the 28th. You got to get it down to your 53 1 week ahead of the season opener. You create the practice squad of 8 players. And of course, the regular season gets underway that second Sunday in September. Intercepted. And sliding on one knee to tie a ribbon around this one is Carmen Messina. Well, congratulations, Carmen Messina. Jim Schwartz has to feel mighty good about his team's effort here tonight. His first team defense twice slammed the door on potential touchdown drives by Joe Flacco and the Ravens offense. Stafford in the passing game looked great. Few silly penalties early.
Well, I talked about the valuation properties of the second game, and Jim Schwartz was thrilled to play a good team like the Baltimore Ravens, because now that's going to be legitimate evaluation in all the areas you just talked about, that he's going to be able to draw on and say, you know what, this act or this play was against some pretty good people. We can draw on that.
Well, you think back to Jim Schwartz's first training camp in 2009.
Lions franchise coming off an 0-16 season. They chose Matthew Stafford, decided to make him the #1 pick, put him right in as a starter. But of course, for his first 2 years, he was hurt a lot. But Schwartz won 2 games that first year, 6 games the second year. They go to the playoffs last year. Certainly an offseason of some discontent, but addressing the on-field issues they needed to address. This guy has really done a good job.
Well, he and Martin Mayhew, the general manager, have done a great job, and there's very few coaches and general managers that have had to go through the rebuilding process and overcoming the hole that was dug, as was that 0-16 season in Detroit. They deserve a great deal of credit for bringing this team. There's Martin Mayhew there, was part of the previous regime, but now taking over as general manager, developing a partnership with Jim Schwartz. They have a unified vision for this team, and we're seeing it.
Whoa, into the open field. And nobody going to catch Stephon Green. He will go to the end zone. "76 yards.
Come on, Jim, get a little excited. I don't care if it is in the fourth quarter of a preseason game. You can understand Harbaugh not liking this. Look at the Jets on this guy. The defense collapsed down. He sees that little bit of an alley. Now it's one-on-one. Nice cut here. And then he is off to the races. Looking him up. He's looking up at the scoreboard. Watch him. He wants to see, is anybody going to catch me? Look up, look up. Everybody uses it. Yeah, there you go. Now he knows. He's looking right up at that scoreboard. Use all the resources you can.
Rookie out of Penn State.
Good hustle.
See his career numbers with the Nittany Lions. And a point after by Dimke makes it a 27-12 game.
Still football. I don't care what level it is. The excitement of scoring an NFL touchdown.
Your first.
Yeah, that's pretty special. That's a special time. And it really doesn't matter that it's preseason. And now you got to go down and cover the kick. That's the life. That's the guy that sings for his supper. That's the definition of a guy that sings for his supper. Go 70-some-odd yards for a touchdown. Oh, by the way, hey, son, you're still on the kickoff team. Get out there.
And that's where you go to another fellow youngster and the guy who's going to do the kicking off, Derek Dimke, and said, look, man.
Yeah, you got to help me here.
You got to get this one out of the end zone.
Come on, do me a favor. You know, and we talked about it in the open. A lot to get out of these preseason games. You let it go very quickly. The score really doesn't matter. Now, the competitor in you want to win. Don't make no mistake. But the coach's number one thing, did I get out healthy? Did I get a chance to look at the people that I needed to on film? And 10 seconds after the game, you don't really carry it. John Harbaugh, he'll get a lot out of this game. Not feel very good about it. This is a competitive man right there. No one likes to lose. But you got to move on quickly from the free. There's bigger fish to fry out in front of you.
.43 ticks remain. Well, that's not going to be banging one through the back of the end zone. Raining. And it wasn't Green who made the tackle.
I said, please let it be Green, man. Have the. But he was there.
He's trying to keep from falling over before he gets to the
right
sideline.
He's going, this NFL's tough, man. In college, I'd have been able to sit down. There's no way I was going to have to cover. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, at least he's in the safety mode. If he had to run somebody down, if he'd have gone into that second level, it'd have been a problem.
Well, good for him. And Matthew Stafford comes over to shake his hand. Say congratulations. Painter lays it off. Out of the backfield of Damian Berry. Down to under 30 seconds left to go. And 2 more preseason games for each of these teams. Talked about the Ravens will begin their season on a Monday night at home against division rival Cincinnati. The Lions open at home, a game you can see here on Fox, against the St. Louis Rams. But boy, week 2, things change in a hurry. We'll revisit the San Francisco 49ers against, of course, Jim Schwartz's Lions. We remember what took place at the conclusion of that game last year in Detroit. This time they play in the Bear area. I would imagine the handshake between Schwartz and Jim's brother John will be far less eventful.
Absolutely. And I can promise you that week, those coaches are already tired of even thinking about all the chatter that's going to go on during the week leading up to the game based on what happened last year.
You know, I want to ask you something that you brought up earlier about Jim Schwartz, and you talked about trying to rein in some of the mistakes and the lack of discipline at times. How does a coach do that?
Well, first off, and you can tell with Jim, it's all behind closed doors. We're not going to do anything publicly. But I can promise you he and Martin Mayhew, at every opportunity, probably on a daily basis, stress what's acceptable and what's not and the way they're going to be. The letting go of Aaron Berry was very clear cut, and as Martin Mayhew told us, there was no decision to be made. That was not a hard decision.
I meant more along the lines, forgive me, I meant more specifically, not about the off the field stuff. I think they're trying to push through that now, and they've really pretty much laid it out there and shown that they're more than capable of turning somebody loose, even a starter.
On the defense, number 69, 5-yard penalty, still second down.
But I mean, the penalties on the field.
Well, they are connected. As I said earlier, the idea that, guys, we cannot be undisciplined people off the field and then cross that white line of the sideline and all of a sudden, okay, now we'll be a disciplined football team.
Yeah.
The number one thing is you got to show them this is what it costs us. This is what the penalties cost us in terms of wins if we're going to get where we want to go. They have changed the culture of the Detroit Lions. It was a long, hard process, and this will be the final step for them now to realize the dreams and goals and aspirations.
Well, this is the handshake that caused all the to do. An extra little slap, and Schwartz coming out to Harbaugh and yelling, to screaming at one another.
Yeah, both wished it had gone differently. You knew that right from the get-go. Don't know that Jim's thinking about that right now. He's feeling good about it right now. But I promise you, he's thinking about already. Here, the game's not even over. What he's got, like you said, what I got to do tomorrow, what's going to happen next week. Who looked good, who didn't.
How many hours a week is a head coach working this time of year right now in the NFL?
You don't want to know. Everybody works hard.
I know, but I mean, roughly how many hours are you talking about?
I tell you what, right now, there is easily, you're talking about 18-hour days. And the hard part is between now and the end of the season, these coaches will not have a day off. Not a day. Once that first whistle in training camp begins, all the way till hopefully the Super Bowl in February, particularly as the head coach, there's not a day that you don't have to deal with being the head coach of that football team.
I got to tell you, John Harbaugh does not look all that happy tonight. We brought up earlier that, they have veteran guys, and especially on offense, and a quarterback who's led his team to the playoffs 4 years in a row, but even their starters now for a second straight week have not been very impressive.
Or remember the first quarter in Atlanta did not go well. I know they felt like they moved the ball, but there's enough mistakes here and last week that they got a lot of work left to do, and he knows that.
Painter just going to throw it up into the end zone, and it's batted down, and that's that. So the Lions
pick up the 27-12 victory. And the coaches will shake hands. John, not Jim Harbaugh, with Jim Schwartz. Jim, a Baltimore native. And, of course, John Harbaugh grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Well, we hope you've enjoyed it. There's still more to come. Next, it's the DirecTV post-game show. You're watching the NFL preseason for a second straight night on Fox.